Hi guys. Tonight we step quietly into a place where winter does not knock before entering. You are standing just outside a medieval monastery as the last light of day thins and slides away. Snow crunches softly beneath your feet. Not dramatically. Just enough to remind you that warmth is already behind you. The stone walls rise ahead, tall and calm, giving nothing away. No smoke curls from chimneys. No laughter escapes through cracks. The building feels less like shelter and more like a decision that has already been made for you. You probably won't survive this with your modern expectations of sleep. Your mattress, your heater, your phone glowing beside the bed. All of that would feel laughably fragile here, and that is kind of the point. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And as always, tell me where you're listening from and what time it is there right now. Now, dim the lights and follow the sound of your own breathing as you cross the threshold. The door closes behind you with a heavy, wooden certainty. Inside, the air feels different immediately. Colder. Yes, but also drier. It smells faintly of stone dust, old wool, and something herbal that has long since lost its sharpness. A single candle flickers near the wall, its light trembling as if unsure whether it belongs here. You pull your cloak tighter, already understanding that the night ahead will not be generous. This monastery exists somewhere between the 10th and 13th century. Depending on which stones you touch and which rules you follow, one mainstream historical fact is clear. Medieval monasteries were built primarily as places of prayer, not comfort. Warmth was secondary. Silence was essential. Sleep was necessary, but never indulgent. As you move deeper inside, your footsteps soften. The floor is worn smooth by centuries of feet that walked the same paths at the same hours. You are not alone, but no one acknowledges you. Faces pass like shadows, eyes lowered, movements economical. These men have already accepted what the night will bring. Winter here is not treated as an enemy to be fought. It is treated as a condition to be endured. There is a quiet difference. You notice how thick the walls are. Impressive. Really. They keep enemies out and time slow, but they also trap the cold. Stone absorbs the day's chill and releases it slowly, like a memory that refuses to fade. By nightfall, the monastery is colder inside than out. This surprises many modern visitors, and historians still argue whether medieval builders fully understood this trade-off or simply accepted it as unavoidable. A bell sounds somewhere above you. Not loud, not urgent, just present. It marks the hour, not for clocks, but for souls. The sound travels through corridors and into your chest, steady and calm. This bell will shape your night more than you realize. You are led, without words, toward where you will sleep. Along the way, you pass doorways that reveal nothing but darkness. No personal rooms, no private fires. Monastic life is built on shared experience, and that includes discomfort. A quirky detail often mentioned in surviving monastic records is that some monks believed cold nights reduced sinful thoughts. The logic was simple. It is hard to dwell on temptation when your toes are numb. Whether this was sincere belief or spiritual coping mechanism is something scholars continue to debate, but the idea lingered for centuries. You pause near a narrow window. Frost feathers the edges of the glass, turning moonlight into something blurred and distant. Outside, the world continues. Inside, time folds inward. Night here is not for drifting off whenever you please. It is a structured thing, divided and watched. Your hands feel stiff now. You rub them together softly, the sound swallowed by stone. Even this small movement feels loud. Silence is not just expected. It is enforced by habit and fear of correction, not punishment, necessarily, but shame. To disrupt the quiet is to disrupt the rhythm that holds everything together. As you walk, You become aware of sound in a new way. The whisper of fabric, the faint crack of wood contracting in cold. Somewhere, a distant cough that quickly stops. Sound travels differently in winter monasteries. It feels sharper, more exposed. You think, briefly, of how modern heating turns cold into an inconvenience. Here, cold is a companion. It settles beside you early and plans to stay. Some medieval texts describe winter nights as a form of shared trial, something that bonded monks together without conversation. You feel that bond beginning to form, even as an outsider. The corridor opens into a larger space, not yet the dormitory, but close. The ceiling rises slightly. The air smells more strongly of wool and human presence. You feel it on your skin, that mix of breath and damp fabric that signals many bodies resting in one place. This is where the night truly begins. You are tired already, and that is important. Monastic schedules were designed to exhaust the body just enough that sleep came quickly, even in cold. Work, prayer, fasting, repetition, all of it leads here, not to comfort, but to collapse. Before you step fully into the sleeping space, you hesitate. A modern instinct. Maybe one last moment of awareness before surrendering control. You already know this will not be a good night by today's standards, but it will be an honest one. Behind you, the bell sounds again, softer this time. Ahead of you, the dark waits patiently. You take one more breath, cold and steady, and step forward, carrying the day out of your body and into the stone that surrounds you. You do not lie down yet. First, you learn the rules that quietly decide how this night will unfold. No one gathers you to explain them. No voice announces expectations. Instead, you absorb them through observation, through small corrections, through the way everyone else moves as if guided by an invisible script. Rules here are not suggestions. They are the structure holding the silence together. As you stand near the edge of the dormitory space, you notice how no one speaks. Even eye contact feels restrained. A medieval monastery operates on a rhythm shaped by the rule of Saint Benedict, one mainstream historical fact that governed countless monastic communities across Europe. This rule was clear about sleep. It was necessary for health and discipline, but it must never become indulgence. You are allowed rest, not comfort. The bell you heard earlier was not a signal to sleep. It was a reminder of time. Night is divided into segments, and sleep must fit around prayer, not the other way around. You will lie down soon, but you will also rise again long before dawn, when your body still pleads for warmth and stillness. You watch as monks prepare themselves with practiced economy. Cloaks are removed, folded, and placed carefully. Shoes are lined up in quiet rows. No one rushes. No one lingers. The rule discourages unnecessary movement, especially at night. Too much wandering suggests restlessness of the soul. There is something unsettling about how calmly everyone accepts this. You feel like the only person who still remembers that nights can be soft. One quirky detail preserved in some monastic commentaries is that monks were instructed to sleep in a way that allowed them to rise instantly if needed. That meant no tangled bedding, no deep cocooning. Sleep was meant to be light, alert, almost provisional. Historians still debate whether this instruction was followed strictly or adapted quietly by different communities. But the intention is unmistakable. You notice how the room itself reinforces these rules. There are no partitions, no curtains. Privacy is not just discouraged. It is structurally impossible. The idea is simple. A monk who is always seen is a monk who remains disciplined. You shift your weight and feel the cold creep up through the soles of your feet. Stone floors do not forgive standing still. This, too, is part of the lesson. Comfort is fleeting. Awareness is constant. A senior monk passes nearby. You recognize his status not by clothing but by how others subtly adjust their posture around him. Authority here is quiet. He does not look at you, but his presence tightens the air. This is someone who has slept through many winters like this and survived them without complaint. Silence deepens as more candles are extinguished. Darkness arrives in layers. The rule allows minimal light, just enough to move safely. Excess illumination is seen as unnecessary stimulation. Darkness helps the mind turn inward. You feel that turning begin. Reluctantly. Rules also govern how you position your body. Most monks sleep on their sides, facing inward toward the center of the room. Turning your back to the group is subtly discouraged. Facing inward reinforces unity, even in unconsciousness. It is strange how something as private as sleep becomes communal discipline. There is no choosing your bedtime. The bell decides. There is no choosing your wake time either. That will come later, when another bell slices through the night without apology. Your body is not consulted. Some scholars suggest that this strict regulation of sleep helped monks detach from personal desire. Others argue it was simply practical, a way to keep large groups functioning smoothly in limited space. The truth probably lives somewhere between faith and necessity. You feel a small modern resistance rise in you. A question forms. Why accept this? Why not soften it? Add warmth? Add comfort? But the monastery does not answer questions. It absorbs them. You begin to understand that these rules are not meant to make the night easier. They are meant to make the self quieter. Cold, fatigue, and repetition strip away choices until only routine remains. As you prepare to lie down, you realize that sleep here is not an escape from discipline. It is part of it. Every position, every breath, every interruption has already been decided. The last candle goes out. Darkness settles fully now, thick and complete. You lower yourself toward the place that will serve as your bed, already aware that this night belongs less to rest and more to endurance. And somewhere above you, time waits, measured and patient, ready to call you back from sleep before you are ready. You begin by letting go of things, not symbolically at first, but physically, one small habit at a time. There is no ceremony for this, no speech about humility. You simply notice that what you are allowed to bring into the night is very little, and what you are expected to leave behind is almost everything else. Your outer cloak is already gone. Anything decorative or personal was surrendered earlier in the day, tucked away in places that feel more permanent than private. What remains on your body now is practical and plain. Rough wool against skin, linen beneath it, thin and worn from countless washings. The fabric smells faintly of soap and old smoke. Not unpleasant, just honest. Monastic rules from the period make one thing clear. Sleep is not a time for self-expression. It is a time for rest that prepares you for obedience the next day. Even personal items that might bring comfort are discouraged. A pillow is rare. Extra coverings are granted only to the sick or elderly. Everyone else learns to adapt. You feel strangely exposed without your usual objects. No bag beside the bed. No familiar weight in your pockets. Even your hands feel empty. This stripping away is intentional. The fewer distractions you carry, the less your thoughts wander. At least, that is the idea. One small but telling custom appears as you watch others settle. Many monks keep a belt or cord loosely tied around their waist even at night. It is not for warmth. It is a reminder of discipline, something that keeps the body slightly aware, slightly restrained. Some accounts suggest this helped monks rise quickly when the night bell rang. Others hint it was symbolic, a physical echo of vows that never truly come off. You adjust your own clothing, tugging the wool lower over your hips. It scratches a little. You try not to focus on it, but the cold sharpens every sensation. Fabric becomes more noticeable when it is the only barrier between you and freezing air. There is no mirror here, but you sense how different you must look already. Simpler, more uniform, individual shapes dissolving into a collective outline. It is unsettling how quickly identity begins to soften when choice is removed. You glance around and notice how everyone prepares in nearly the same way. Movements are economical, almost ritualized. This sameness is not accidental. Medieval monastic life valued conformity as a form of spiritual safety. Standing out was seen as a risk, both to humility and to harmony. A curious detail hidden in some monastery inventories is the occasional mention of shoes kept within arm's reach at night. Not for comfort, but for emergencies. Fire, illness, or sudden calls to prayer required immediate response. Even in sleep, readiness mattered. You place your own shoes where you have seen others place theirs. Lined up, toes forward. It feels oddly formal for something so mundane. But here, even sleep has posture. The air feels colder now that you are standing still. You realize that movement was keeping you warm. Stillness invites the cold closer. This may be why monks are encouraged to lie down promptly once preparations are complete. Hesitation costs heat. As you lower yourself toward the bed space, you feel the firmness beneath the thin layer of straw. This is not a bed in the modern sense. It is a surface that accepts your weight without adapting to it. Your body must do the adapting instead. You hesitate for a moment before sitting fully. A quiet instinct tells you that once you are down, standing again will be harder. Cold stiffens joints quickly. Muscles complain more loudly when asked to move twice. You sit. The cold rises immediately through the straw. Not sharply, but steadily. It seeps upward. A patient sensation that makes no threats. It simply arrives and stays. Your breath sounds louder now, in the quiet. Even small sounds feel amplified. You control it instinctively. Inhaling through your nose. Exhaling slowly. Breath management becomes a tool here. Not for meditation exactly, but for survival. Some surviving monastic letters hint at small personal rebellions. Extra rags tucked under straw. Sleeves pulled over, hands despite rules. These acts were rarely recorded officially, but they appear between the lines. Evidence pulls in two directions. Strict discipline on paper. Quiet adaptation in practice. You lie back carefully, aware of every contact point. Your shoulders meet the surface first, then your spine. The back of your head rests on nothing but folded fabric. You immediately understand why neck pain was a common complaint in monastic infirmaries. Your clothing is now your blanket. You pull your sleeves down over your hands, then hesitate. Remembering what you observed earlier, you pull them back slightly, not too much, just enough to feel compliant. The cold continues its slow work. It does not shock. It teaches. You feel your toes begin to numb first. Fingers follow. The core of your body holds warmth longer, but only because everything else is giving it up. You try to find a position that keeps heat in. Curling slightly helps. Facing inward helps too. Not physically, but mentally. There is comfort in knowing others are close, even if you cannot see them. You think briefly of modern advice about sleeping cool for better rest. The comparison almost makes you smile. This is not that. This is not a thermostat adjusted down a few degrees. This is winter, claiming its space. Your mind wanders, as minds do when bodies settle. You think of how sleep is usually framed as recovery, reward, escape. Here, it feels more like surrender, not to dreams, but to routine. No one speaks. No one shifts unnecessarily. The room breathes as one organism, slow and careful. You feel yourself becoming part of that rhythm, whether you intend to or not. The truth about how comfortable monks truly were at night remains uncertain. Some descriptions suggest remarkable endurance. Others hint at quiet misery endured without complaint. What is clear is that the night offered no special mercy. You close your eyes, not because sleep has arrived, but because there is nothing left to look at. The cold presses closer. The day recedes. And slowly, as resistance fades, you begin to understand that letting go of comfort is not a single act, but a series of small acceptances that continue long after the lights go out. You do not fall asleep yet. The cold keeps you balanced in that quiet space between rest and awareness. And in that space, your attention begins to wander outward again, not to the world beyond the walls, but to the walls themselves. You start to sense how much the building shapes what your body is experiencing. This monastery was never designed with winter comfort in mind. Its purpose is older and sterner than that. The architecture speaks a language of endurance, not relief. Thick stone walls rise around you, impressive and unyielding. During the day, they keep the interior cool and dim. At night, especially in winter, they become reservoirs of cold. From what survives in construction manuals and abbey records, we know that medieval builders prioritized permanence, protection, and spiritual symbolism. Height mattered, solidity mattered, warmth rarely entered the conversation. Stone was chosen because it lasted, because it resisted fire, and because it felt eternal. Insulation was an afterthought, if it was a thought at all. Lying here now, you feel the consequences of that choice. Cold radiates gently, but persistently, from every direction. It is not just beneath you, it surrounds you. The walls, the floor, even the ceiling seem to exhale chill. You notice how little wood there is in the structure. Wood rots, wood burns, stone endures, but wood also insulates, and its absence leaves the interior exposed. In some monasteries, wooden paneling was added centuries later to soften this effect, but in many early houses, bare stone dominated. Your breath fogs faintly in the darkness. You cannot see it clearly, but you sense it. Each exhale leaves your body warm and returns cooler, as if reminding you that heat is always leaving faster than it arrives. One overlooked detail in monastic architecture is the placement of sleeping quarters. Dormitories were often built above ground, sometimes on upper levels, where cold winds cut more sharply. This was not accidental. Elevation symbolized spiritual closeness to heaven. Comfort, once again, came second. You shift slightly and hear the faint rustle of straw. The sound travels farther than you expect. Stone carries noise efficiently. A cough at one end of the room can be heard clearly at the other. This is one reason silence mattered so deeply here. Privacy was never guaranteed, but quiet reduced friction. Your fingers brush the wall beside you. The stone is smooth but cold enough to sting slightly. It holds the chill of the entire day and seems in no hurry to let it go. You pull your hand back quickly, tucking it under your sleeve. There is a strange honesty to this environment. Nothing is hidden. No soft surfaces absorb sound. No layers disguise temperature. The building tells you exactly where you stand. Some monastic spaces were designed with small compromises. Narrow windows to reduce drafts, thick shutters to block night air. But glass was expensive and imperfect. Even closed windows leaked cold. In winter, monks often stuffed cracks with cloth or straw, though official rules rarely mentioned such adjustments. You imagine the builders centuries earlier, laying stone upon stone, focused on symmetry and strength. They likely understood winter well. Many came from rural backgrounds. They knew cold, but their goal was not to defeat it. It was to live alongside it, disciplined by it. There is an odd comfort in realizing this. The cold you feel is not neglect. It is inheritance. The ceiling above you disappears into shadow. Roofs here are high, allowing sound to rise and disperse. This helps during chanting and prayer. But at night, it creates a vast pocket of air that cools quickly. Heat rises and escapes upward, leaving sleepers below with the densest chill. Some later monasteries experimented with lower ceilings in dormitories, hoping to trap warmth. Evidence of this appears in architectural changes layered over time, but the effectiveness remains unclear. Sources from different regions describe different results, suggesting adaptation was inconsistent. Your body adjusts again, curling slightly tighter. You tuck your chin down, trying to keep warmth from escaping your neck. These small adjustments feel instinctive, instinct. You wonder how many bodies have done the same thing in this exact spot. You notice a faint draft along the floor. Air moves subtly, drawn through gaps you cannot see. Stone contracts in cold. Mortar shifts. The building breathes in its own slow way. In some monasteries, sleeping quarters were placed near the church itself. This proximity allowed monks to rise quickly for night prayers. It also meant sleeping near large, unheated spaces that acted like cold wells. The church absorbed heat during the day and released cold at night, influencing nearby rooms. You sense this now. The cold feels directional, heavier from one side. You suspect the church lies that way. There is a persistent modern belief that medieval people were accustomed to cold in ways we are not. There is truth in that, but it can be overstated. Letters and infirmary records mention numbness, joint pain, and respiratory issues. Endurance existed, but so did suffering. The difference was expectation. Cold was normal, not negotiable. The architecture reinforces that lesson. Nothing here invites you to relax fully. Lines are straight, corners sharp. Even in darkness, the space feels alert. You listen again to the room. Breathing. A soft shift of fabric. Somewhere, a sleeper exhales slowly, deeply. That sound steadies you. Shared discomfort creates quiet companionship. You think of how modern buildings aim to disappear, to make you forget their presence. This building does the opposite. It insists on being felt, on being known. The truth about whether this design strengthened faith or simply reflected available materials is not entirely settled. What is clear is that architecture shaped behavior. Cold rooms encouraged movement. Movement supported discipline. Discipline reinforced belief. You lie still now, conserving warmth, letting your body learn the contours of stone and straw. The building does not change for you. You must change for it. Slowly, as your muscles relax despite the cold, the monastery seems to settle too. Not warmer, but quieter, more settled in its purpose. You are not asleep yet, but you are no longer resisting the space around you. The stone has made its case. And as your breathing slows, you begin to feel how this place, built for souls rather than bodies, will decide the terms of your rest long before dreams arrive. The dormitory reveals itself gradually, not all at once. At first, it is just a sense of space opening up around you, wider than the corridors, heavier with human presence. Then your eyes adjust to the darkness, and shapes begin to separate from shadow. Rows of sleeping places stretch along the walls, orderly and restrained, like a field planted with human bodies instead of grain. This is where everyone comes at night. No exceptions. Abbots, novices, men who have lived here for decades and those who arrived only months ago. One of the clearest things preserved in monastic customs is this shared sleeping arrangement. Separate rooms were rare and usually reserved for the sick. Everyone else rested together, watched by the same walls, breathing the same cold air. You become aware of how close everyone is. Not touching, but near enough that a careless movement would brush another sleeve or elbow. The space between beds is measured, deliberate. Too far apart would suggest isolation. Too close would invite distraction. Even spacing becomes a moral choice. The smell of the room settles into your senses. Wool dominates everything. Old wool. Damp wool. Wool warmed briefly by bodies and then cooled again. Beneath it, there is straw and dust and stone. It is not unpleasant, but it is persistent. You will not forget where you are. As you lie still, you notice the soundscape of the dormitory. It is never silent. Not completely. There is breathing, uneven and layered. Some slow and deep, some shallow and cautious. A few breaths carry a faint wheeze, softened by age or cold. These sounds do not disrupt the quiet. They create it. You realize that sleeping here means surrendering the illusion of privacy entirely. Your body is known, even in rest. Its sounds, its movements, its rhythms. In modern life, sleep is often hidden. Here, it is exposed. A small but revealing habit appears as your attention sharpens. Many monks sleep with their hands folded loosely over their chest or stomach, not clasped tightly, just placed there, as if echoing prayer even in unconsciousness. Whether this was intentional or simply comfortable is hard to say, but it appears again and again in descriptions of monastic nights. You shift slightly, testing the straw beneath you. It crackles softly, then settles. The sound feels too loud. You freeze, listening for reaction. None comes. No reprimand. No sharp inhale. The community absorbs it. There is comfort in that. A sense that small human needs are tolerated, even within strict discipline. The dormitory ceiling looms high above, invisible in the darkness, but present in the way sound behaves. Noise rises and disperses slowly. Nothing echoes sharply. The room feels vast, yet intimate, a contradiction you will grow accustomed to. You think of how different this is from sleeping alone. Alone. Your thoughts bounce freely. Here, they feel constrained by proximity. You are aware of others without interacting with them. It creates a subtle pressure to be still, to align. In some monasteries, a single lamp or candle burned through the night, positioned so a supervising monk could observe the room, not to spy, but to maintain order. Even when eyes were closed, the possibility of being seen remained. Tonight, the light is minimal, but the habit lingers. Your body begins to adjust to the shared warmth. It is slight, but noticeable. Dozens of bodies release heat, and some of it lingers low in the room. It is not enough to banish the cold, but it takes the edge off. This is one of the quiet advantages of communal sleep. There is also shared vulnerability. Illness spreads more easily here. Coughs echo. Fevers pass silently from body to body. Records from infirmaries suggest winter outbreaks were common, and dormitories played a role. Yet the arrangement persisted. Community mattered more than risk. You listen as someone nearby shifts in their sleep. Straw rustles. Fabric sighs. Then stillness returns. No one speaks. Even murmurs are rare. Talking in sleep was sometimes noted with concern, seen as a sign of unrest. The cold continues its steady presence. It no longer shocks you. Instead, it presses gently, encouraging stillness. You find yourself minimizing movement, not out of rule alone, but because motion costs warmth. You sense how the dormitory trains the body, how repeated nights like this would shape posture, breathing, even thought patterns. Over time, discomfort becomes familiar. Familiarity dulls complaint. There is an odd moment of connection when you realize everyone here is experiencing roughly the same thing. No one is warmer than you. No one is truly comfortable. Equality, in this case, is literal. Some modern writers imagine medieval monks as serene figures, untouched by physical hardship. The reality is quieter and harder. Serenity, if it came, grew out of endurance, not ease. Your mind drifts again, but the presence of others anchors it. You cannot spiral too far inward when surrounded by breathing bodies. The dormitory pulls you back, again and again, into the shared present. You wonder how many winters passed for the men around you. How many nights like this shaped their understanding of faith. Repetition has power. Cold nights repeated hundreds of times change expectations. You become aware of your own breath matching the rhythm of the room. Slower now, deeper. The communal pace influences you. Like a tide, a distant sound filters in through stone. Wind, maybe, or the faint groan of the building as it settles. Winter makes structures speak in subtle ways. You listen without anxiety. Nothing here is urgent at night unless the bell says so. Gradually, Your thoughts lose their edges. The dormitory becomes less a place and more a sensation. Weight, cold, breath, presence. You are not asleep yet, but you are no longer fully awake either. This in-between state feels different here. Less dreamy, more grounded. As you settle deeper into the straw, surrounded by others doing the same, you understand something quietly important. Sleep in this monastery is not an individual act. It is a collective pause. The day will return soon enough. The bell will see to that. For now, the dormitory holds you, cold and crowded and strangely steady, teaching you how to rest without retreating from the world around you. You become aware of the bed by how little it does for you. There is no sinking sensation, no gentle adjustment to your shape. Instead, the surface beneath you remains firm and indifferent, as if reminding you that its purpose is to hold you, not comfort you. Calling it a bed feels generous. It is a frame, sometimes nothing more than a low wooden platform or even a raised edge built into the wall. On top of it rests straw, packed, thin, and uneven, replaced periodically but never softened. Over time, the straw flattens, breaks, and shifts, creating small ridges that press into your back and hips. From surviving rules and inventories, it is clear that straw bedding was the standard for most monks. Feathers were expensive and associated with luxury. Wool stuffing appeared occasionally, but even that was rare. The goal was support, not ease. You test the surface beneath you again, shifting your weight carefully. A sharper piece of straw presses against your shoulder blade. You move an inch to the side, then stop. Every movement feels deliberate now. Too much shifting draws attention and costs heat. Your spine slowly learns the shape of the boards beneath the straw. You can feel where wood joins wood, where gaps allow colder air to creep upward. The bed is elevated just enough to separate you from the coldest layer of air near the floor, but not enough to insulate you completely. This small elevation mattered. Floors in stone buildings were often the coldest surfaces at night. Even a few inches made a difference. It is one of those quiet design choices that only becomes meaningful in winter. A strange detail appears in some descriptions of monastic sleep. Novices sometimes complained that straw attracted insects. Fleas and lice were common companions, especially in colder months when animals were kept closer to human spaces. Bedding was cleaned, but never sterilely. It is possible that itching and discomfort were as much a part of the night as cold. You notice an occasional twitch nearby. Someone scratches briefly, then stills. The movement is quick, practiced, restrained. You lie on your side now, knees slightly bent, arms folded inward. This position feels more protective, less exposed. It traps warmth near your core. Many monks favored it for that reason, even if rules suggested other postures were more appropriate. The firmness beneath you begins to register in your muscles. There is no place for them to fully relax. Your shoulders remain slightly lifted. Your hips do not sink. Sleep here does not erase tension. It suspends it. In modern life, we often measure good sleep by how little we feel our bodies. Here, you feel everything. Each contact point sends quiet signals upward. It keeps you aware, grounded in the present moment, whether you want to be or not. Some accounts suggest that monks believed hard beds strengthened character and health. Others imply that this belief developed after the fact, a way to frame discomfort as virtue. The sources do not agree completely, and the lived experience probably varied from person to person. You try to adjust your head, folding your sleeve beneath it for padding. The fabric offers minimal softness, but it helps. You understand now why monks often slept fully clothed. Clothes were not just modesty, they were equipment. The cold presses more firmly against the parts of your body closest to the bed. Your shoulder grows numb. You shift again. Slowly, quietly. The straw responds with a faint crackle, then settles. There is a rhythm to this. Shift. Pause. Wait for warmth to return. Stillness. It is not restful in the modern sense, but it is predictable. Predictability brings its own kind of calm. You think briefly of how long nights must have felt in deep winter, without artificial light. Evenings stretched and mornings arrived late. Sleep filled the darkness by necessity, not because it was easy. The bed beneath you carries the weight of many seasons. You can feel grooves worn into the wood by countless bodies. This is not your bed. It belongs to the monastery, passed from one sleeper to the next over generations. That thought brings a strange comfort. Your discomfort is shared across time. Others lay here and felt the same pressure points, the same chill, the same restless adjustments. You become aware of how the bed shapes your breathing. Lying on your side compresses your chest slightly. Breaths become deeper, slower, more deliberate. Shallow breathing does not work well here. Cold demands fuller inhalations. Nearby, someone exhales with a soft rattle, then settles. You wonder about their age, their lungs, their years spent sleeping this way. There is no sense of sinking into sleep yet. Instead, you hover at the edge of it, held there by firmness and cold. It is a lighter sleep, one that can be broken easily by sound or bell. This was intentional. Monastic schedules required waking during the night for prayer. Beds that encouraged deep, heavy sleep would have worked against that rhythm. The bed teaches readiness. It never lets you forget where you are. You feel a dull ache begin in your lower back. Not sharp, but persistent. You know from experience that ignoring it will make it worse. You roll carefully onto your other side, repeating the slow ritual of adjustment. The straw is different here. Slightly thinner, the board beneath presses more firmly. You accept it. Acceptance becomes a theme of the night. Not dramatic surrender, just small acknowledgements. This is how it is. This is how it will remain until morning. Your thoughts slow, not because the bed is comfortable, but because there is nothing left to negotiate. You cannot improve the situation much. You can only inhabit it. Gradually, the firmness beneath you fades into the background, not because it changes, but because your body stops arguing with it. Muscles hold what they must. Awareness softens. Sleep, when it comes, will not feel like falling. It will feel like easing sideways into stillness. As you lie there, suspended between cold and rest, you understand that these beds were never meant to cradle dreams. They were meant to support bodies just enough to continue the rule. And with that understanding, your breathing deepens again, steady and slow, as the hard, honest surface beneath you keeps watch through the winter night. You wake slightly without fully waking, drawn back toward awareness by the slow realization that nothing has changed. The cold is still there. The bed is still firm. The darkness remains complete. And wrapped around all of it is the quiet truth that what you are wearing is the only barrier you have. There are no blankets waiting to be pulled higher, no thick coverings tucked around your feet. What you brought to bed on your body is what you have. Wool, linen, leather in small places. That is it. Medieval monastic custom made this clear through practice rather than explanation. Monks slept clothed, not loosely draped, but fully dressed in their daily garments, minus outer cloaks. This was partly about modesty, partly about readiness, and partly about warmth. Clothing served as bedding, insulation, and uniform all at once. You shift your legs slightly, testing how much warmth remains trapped inside the fabric. Wool does its job slowly. It holds heat unevenly, creating pockets of warmth and channels of cold. Linen beneath it feels cool against your skin, but it helps wick moisture away, keeping sweat from turning into chill. You tuck your hands under your arms, instinctively protecting your fingers. They have grown stiff again. Even brief exposure to the cold air inside the dormitory drains warmth quickly. You learn to move economically, keeping hands close, minimizing exposure. One small but revealing habit appears again as you observe others in the dimness. Sleeves are pulled down, then pushed back, then pulled down again. Not dramatically, just small adjustments made half asleep. It is the kind of motion you would never notice in daylight. But here it stands out. There is no shame in this. Everyone does it. The rules allow clothing for warmth. What they discourage is excess. No layering beyond what is permitted. No hoarding of extra garments. Equality matters even in insulation. Some monasteries issued heavier wool garments specifically for winter nights. Others did not. Records vary by region and order. What remains consistent is that clothing replaced blankets almost entirely. The idea of stripping down for sleep would have seemed unnecessary and foolish. You feel the seams of your tunic pressing lightly into your side. They are not designed for lying down. Clothing here prioritizes durability over comfort. Seams are thick. Stitching is coarse. After hours of stillness, these small details grow louder in the body. You turn your head slightly and feel the fabric bunch beneath your cheek. There is no smoothness here. Nothing soft. Yet your body adjusts. Finding a position where pressure spreads evenly enough to tolerate, the cold continues its steady work. But clothing slows it just enough. Not stopping it. Delaying it. That delay matters. There is a faint smell rising from the fabric around you. Clean, but worn. Wool holds scent longer than linen. It smells of smoke from the hearth used earlier in the day. Of damp air. Of human presence. It is grounding in a way that modern synthetic fabrics rarely are. You remember, distantly, how modern advice often recommends lighter clothing for better sleep. That advice belongs to rooms that can be controlled. Here, heavier clothing is survival. Some surviving accounts mention monks sleeping with their hoods pulled up around their heads. Despite rules discouraging it, this small rebellion appears again and again in winter descriptions. The head loses heat quickly. Covering it helps. Whether this was officially tolerated or quietly ignored depends on the source. The truth likely lived somewhere in between. You consider pulling your own hood up, then hesitate. You feel the tension between comfort and conformity. Even half asleep, the habit of obedience lingers. You compromise. You turn slightly so your shoulder shields part of your face from the air. It helps a little. Your breathing fogs faintly within the space created by your collar. The warmth of your breath returns to you briefly before escaping. It is a small comfort, but noticeable. Clothing shapes your posture. Heavy wool resists bending, encouraging straighter alignment even while lying down. This keeps your chest more open. You're breathing deeper. It also prevents you from curling too tightly, which could restrict circulation. The design is not intentional for sleep, but it has consequences. You become aware of how many layers you are actually wearing. Tunic, undergarment, leg coverings, footwear removed, but feet still wrapped in thick fabric. Each layer contributes a little warmth, but also stiffness. There is no easy way to scratch an itch or adjust fabric without exposing skin. You learn to endure small discomforts rather than risk greater cold. Endurance becomes practical rather than philosophical. Nearby, someone exhales deeply and shifts. You hear fabric rubbing against straw. Then stillness again. The sound is soft, familiar now. You recognize it as the sound of someone settling, not waking. There is an unspoken understanding in the room. Everyone is balancing the same calculation. How much movement costs warmth? How much stillness costs comfort? Each person solves it slightly differently. Some historians suggest that sleeping clothed helped monks detach from bodily indulgence. Others argue it was simply logical in unheated spaces. Both can be true. Faith and practicality often overlap quietly. Your thoughts drift, slowed by the steady rhythm of breathing around you. Clothing presses, holds, warms, and restricts all at once. It reminds you constantly that you are here, embodied, present. You are not floating towards sleep. You are anchored to it. The cold no longer surprises you. It feels familiar now, like a steady hand resting against your side. Clothing keeps it from touching skin directly, but you know it is there, waiting. As minutes stretch, your body finds a fragile equilibrium. Heat lost matches, heat retained. Shivering fades. Muscles unclench slightly. This is as warm as it will get. And in that narrow band between discomfort and tolerance, your eyelids grow heavier, not because you are comfortable, but because you have stopped resisting. Wrapped only in what you wear, you begin to drift, learning that here, clothing is not about appearance. It is shelter. It is bedding. It is the thin line between rest and wakefulness on a winter night made of stone. Sleep does not arrive quietly here. Instead, it approaches in pauses, broken by sound. The monastery at night has a voice of its own. And once you begin to notice it, you realize it never truly falls silent. At first, the sounds feel distant. The wind presses against the outer walls, not howling, but testing, sliding along stone and finding small gaps. It creates a low, steady pressure that seeps into the room. The building answers with faint creaks and groans as wood contracts and stone shifts under the cold. You listen without moving. Each sound feels amplified in the darkness, without light to anchor your senses. Hearing becomes sharper. You notice how the dormitory carries noise in subtle ways. A breath nearby feels close. A movement several beds away travels across the floor and up the walls. There is a rhythm to it. The monastery breathes. Not like a living thing exactly, but like a structure responding to temperature and time. As the night deepens, it settles. Sounds grow slower, more spaced apart. Some noises you recognize immediately. Fabric rubbing, straw compressing, a quiet sniff. These are human sounds, familiar and reassuring. Others are harder to place. A faint tapping, a distant thud, possibly ice shifting on the roof, possibly a shutter moving in the wind. You think briefly of how modern buildings are designed to muffle these things. Insulation hides sound. Double walls absorb vibration. Here, nothing is hidden. The building tells you what it is experiencing. There is an old belief, noted in several monastic writings, that nighttime sounds could distract the mind toward fear or imagination. Monks were encouraged to accept these sounds without interpretation. Not every noise meant danger. Most were simply the world continuing. You test this advice now. A sudden crack echoes softly. Like wood splitting, your body tenses. Then you breathe out slowly. No footsteps follow. No alarm bell rings. The sound fades back into the fabric of the night. The wind shifts direction. You hear it slide along the length of the wall. Searching, it finds a seam and slips through, creating a thin whistle that lingers for several seconds before stopping. Cold air follows, brushing your cheek. You pull your chin down slightly, then hold still again. Some monasteries were built near forests or hills. Night sounds from animals occasionally reached the dormitory. An owl call, a distant bark. In winter, these sounds were rarer, muted by snow and cold. Still, they happened. The outside world was never completely shut out. You listen carefully, separating layers of sound. Closest are the breaths. Then, the subtle movements of bodies adjusting. Beyond that, the building itself. Beyond that, the world. There is a moment when you realize that listening like this keeps you awake. Yet ignoring the sounds feels impossible. Your mind is alert, scanning gently, learning the pattern. This kind of listening is not anxious. It is attentive. The difference matters. A strange comfort emerges from repetition. When a sound repeats without consequence, it loses its power. The second creak is less startling than the first. The third barely registers. In this way, the monastery teaches you how to rest within awareness, not by removing stimulation, but by making it predictable. You notice a faint drip somewhere. Slow, regular, possibly melting frost or condensation from breath collecting on stone. It creates a small rhythm, almost like a clock. Each drop marks time passing, even in darkness. Some accounts mention monks using these sounds as anchors during prayer and rest. Instead of resisting noise, they folded it into their attention. The mind learned to stay present rather than wander. You experiment with this. You focus on the drip, then on the breath of the person nearest you, then on your own breath. The sounds layer and merge. A cough breaks the pattern briefly. Someone clears their throat. Quietly, with restraint. The sound echoes more than expected. You wait, wondering if it will disturb others. It does not. The dormitory absorbs it and returns to stillness. Your own breath slows as you listen. Longer inhales, softer exhales. You feel the warmth of breath against your collar. Then its absence. Outside, wind brushes against the roof again. This time slower. It feels like a hand smoothing over stone. The building responds with a low creak that settles quickly. You realize that the monastery does not fight sound. It carries it. Sound moves freely here, just as cold does. Both are part of the same environment. Some modern interpretations suggest that constant sound would have made deep sleep difficult. That may be true. But sleep here is not meant to be deep in the modern sense. It is meant to be sufficient. Your thoughts drift, then return, then drift again, guided by sound rather than images. There are no screens behind your eyelids. No artificial hum. Only layers of real noise. At some point, you stop labeling sounds. They become texture rather than information. The wind is no longer wind. The creak is no longer creak. They blend into a single, shifting backdrop. This is when sleep begins to loosen its hold on consciousness. You feel your body grow heavier. Even as your awareness floats, the bed beneath you remains firm, but your muscles stop pushing against it. They accept its shape. A distant bell rings once. Not loud, possibly marking an hour. It does not call you to rise yet. It simply reminds the monastery of time moving forward. You barely react. The sound passes through you like breath. Your listening grows softer. You no longer strain to hear. Sounds come to you on their own, then fade. The dormitory breathes again. Slow, even. The building settles deeper into the cold. As sleep approaches, the sounds do not disappear. They recede, like footsteps moving away down a long corridor. You remain aware of them without following. And in that softened awareness, surrounded by wind, stone, and quiet human presence, your mind begins to rest. Held gently by the steady voice of the winter night, sleep finally settles. But it is not deep or generous. It arrives thinly, like frost forming on stone. You drift into it slowly, aware of the cold even as your thoughts loosen their grip. The chill does not disappear when you close your eyes. It follows you there, patient and steady. At first, the cold feels distant, something happening around you rather than to you. But as minutes stretch, it presses closer. The warmth your body worked to gather begins to leak away again. Heat escapes through breath, through fabric, through the thin layer of straw beneath you. Nothing here seals it in completely. You wake just enough to notice it. Not fully awake, but aware. Your toes feel numb now. Fingers too. The parts of you farthest from your core surrender first. You curl slightly tighter, drawing knees closer. Arms tucked in. This helps for a while. Winter, in a medieval monastery, was not an event. It was a condition. Cold did not arrive suddenly in the night. It deepened gradually, hour by hour, as the stone released what little warmth it had absorbed during the day. The cold you feel now is colder than it was when you lay down. You become aware of your breath again. It feels sharper when you inhale, cooler as it enters your chest. Exhaling brings brief warmth, then loss. Each breath is a small exchange. Some accounts written by monks describe winter nights as the hardest test of discipline. Hunger could be endured. Silence could be learned. Cold, however, demanded constant negotiation. It never stopped asking questions of the body. You shift your feet slightly, rubbing them together within your clothing. The movement is small, careful. Too much motion risks exposing skin. Too little allows numbness to deepen. You search for balance. Your mind drifts toward half-dreams, images that flicker and dissolve. They are not vivid yet, just impressions. A memory of warmth, a distant hearth, the weight of a blanket that no longer exists. These thoughts pass quickly, replaced by the present sensation of cold air against your face. You notice that the cold feels different depending on where it touches you. Against your cheek, it feels sharp. Along your back, it is duller, heavier. Beneath you, it feels constant, unyielding. Some medieval writers believed cold sharpened the senses and clarified thought. Others described it as a distraction that required spiritual effort to overcome. The truth likely varied by night. On some nights, cold may have felt manageable. On others, relentless. Tonight feels like the latter. You hear someone nearby shift more frequently now. Their movements suggest discomfort rather than wakefulness. Perhaps they are older. Perhaps they are ill. Cold magnifies small weaknesses. There is no rising yet. No bell. Just the long stretch of night, unfolding without hurry. You become aware of how still you are trying to remain. Muscles hold tension to preserve warmth. Relaxing too much allows cold to creep deeper. Your body stays partially alert, even as your mind drifts. This kind of rest is lighter. It floats near the surface. You could wake quickly if needed. That is exactly how it was meant to be. In some monasteries, rules allowed for extra coverings during severe cold spells, but these allowances were rare and often temporary. The expectation remained endurance. Winter was a teacher, not an exception. You think briefly of how many winters passed like this. One after another, the novelty long gone. Only habit remained. Habit turns hardship into routine, but it does not remove it. Your jaw tightens slightly. You loosen it again, letting your mouth rest open just a little. Breathing through the mouth brings more cold in. But sometimes it feels easier. You tuck your chin down further, trying to protect your throat. This helps. The warmth of your breath stays closer to your chest. The cold feels heavier now, pressing rather than brushing. It settles into joints. Knees ache faintly. Hips complain. These are not sharp pains, but dull reminders that the body is working. Some monks reportedly believed that enduring cold without complaint was a form of prayer, not spoken, but lived. The body's discomfort offered upward silently. Whether this belief eased the experience or merely reframed it is unclear. You do not feel heroic. You feel human. Your thoughts slow again. The cold becomes less an object of focus and more a constant presence. Like the sound of wind earlier, it fades into the background. Not gone, but familiar. Sleep deepens slightly. Dreams begin to take shape, though they remain fragile. You see brief images of light, a window, snow, falling slowly. These images lack detail, washed out by cold. You wake again when your shoulder grows too numb. You shift carefully, redistributing weight. The movement wakes you more than you want, but it is necessary. The straw rustles softly, then settles. No one reacts. The room remains steady. You listen again to the breathing around you. It continues, uneven but present. Others are waking and settling just as you are. The night is not smooth for anyone. You consider how long until morning. You do not know the hour. Time is marked by bells here, not personal sense. This uncertainty stretches the night. It makes patience necessary. The cold does not relent. It simply holds its position. At some point, you stop checking it. You stop measuring how cold you feel. The sensation remains, but your attention moves elsewhere. This is not comfort. It is adaptation. Your breathing finds a steady rhythm again. Muscles ease just enough. Sleep resumes its shallow hold. The night continues, long and unbroken. The cold stays with you, not as an enemy, but as a constant companion that never leaves your side. And in that companionship, as your body learns to rest within discomfort rather than escape it, the hours pass quietly, carrying you closer to the moment when the bell will call you back to stone floors and freezing air once more. You do not wake to the bell so much as you surface toward it. The sound reaches you before you understand what it means. A single tone, low and steady, rolling through stone and air. It does not startle. It summons. Your eyes open reluctantly. Darkness still fills the dormitory. Nothing has changed except your awareness. The cold feels sharper now that sleep has thinned. Muscles protest as they register stillness held too long. The bell rings again. Closer this time. Or perhaps your hearing has sharpened. It marks the hour for night prayer. In this monastery, sleep bends around devotion, not the other way around. Rising in winter is the hardest moment. Warmth gathered with effort leaks away as soon as you move. You push yourself upright slowly, careful not to rush. The straw releases you with a soft sound. Cold air rushes in where your body had been. You sit, then pause. Standing too quickly can make you dizzy. Blood shifts. The cold seems to thicken around your legs. You place your feet on the stone floor and feel the shock immediately. Even through thick fabric, the cold bites. This is where discipline shows itself, not in grand gestures, but in the act of standing when every part of you argues against it. Night prayer, often called matins or vigils depending on the order, was a central feature of monastic life. Surviving schedules make it clear that monks were expected to rise in the deepest part of the night, often around midnight or shortly after. Winter did not change this expectation. You pull yourself to your feet. The dormitory fills with quiet movement. No one speaks. Bodies rise. Straighten. Adjust clothing. The sound of fabric against fabric replaces breathing as the dominant noise. You feel stiff. Joints complain softly. Your back resists straightening. You stretch without realizing it. Then stop, remembering where you are. Movements remain small and controlled. The cold feels different now that you are upright. It no longer presses evenly. It wraps around your legs, climbs upward, finds gaps in clothing. You pull your tunic tighter around your waist, more out of habit than effect. A line begins to form. You follow it, guided by proximity rather than instruction. The doorway ahead glows faintly. Someone has lit a candle in the corridor. Its light feels thin, almost fragile against the darkness. As you step out of the dormitory, the temperature drops again. Corridors are colder than sleeping spaces. There is no shared warmth here, no accumulated heat. Stone walls stand apart, each holding its own chill. Your breath fogs visibly now. You watch it briefly, then look away. Focusing on cold makes it louder. The church interior waits ahead. Vast, unheated, high ceilings disappear into shadow. Even before you enter, you feel its cold presence pulling warmth from you. Inside, the space opens wide. The air feels heavier, colder. Still, sound behaves differently here. Footsteps echo softly. Breathing sounds sharper. You take your place among the others. Wooden stalls offer minimal support. Sitting brings little relief. Standing too long brings fatigue. Kneeling presses cold directly into bone. Every posture has its cost. The bell falls silent. Chant begins. Voices rise together, low and steady. The sound fills the space. Climbing upward. lingering against stone before falling back down. Chanting warms the body slightly. Breath deepens. Muscles engage. It helps. This is not dramatic singing. It is measured. Repetitive. Calm. The words matter. But the rhythm matters more. Repetition anchors the mind when the body is cold and tired. You feel warmth spread faintly through your chest as you chant. Not enough to chase away the cold, but enough to remind you that movement creates heat. Stillness invites chill. Some accounts suggest that night prayer was intentionally placed during the coldest hours to sharpen focus. Fatigue strips away excess thought. Cold keeps the body alert. Together, they narrow attention. Whether this was deliberate design or inherited tradition remains uncertain. What is clear is that the effect was powerful. Your voice blends with others. Individual tones disappear into a shared sound. There is comfort in that. No one voice carries responsibility. The group holds the chant together. You notice how the sound warms the space psychologically, if not physically. The church feels less empty when filled with voices. Cold still presses in, but it feels less isolating. Time stretches. You do not know how long you have been standing. The chant continues. Unbroken. Your legs ache. You shift weight slightly, careful to remain quiet. At moments, your mind wanders. It drifts toward sleep again, carried by rhythm. Then a change in tone pulls you back. Attention returns. This cycle repeats. Focus. Drift. Return. Eventually, the chant slows. A final phrase lingers, then fades. Silence returns. Heavier now that sound has left it. You stand still, listening to your own breath. It feels loud in the sudden quiet. The bell rings again. Softer this time, the signal to return. You turn and follow the others back through corridors that feel even colder than before. Your body, warmed slightly by movement and voice, now loses heat quickly. The contrast stings. Back in the dormitory, you move faster. There is no lingering now. Everyone knows what to do. You lower yourself back onto the straw, pulling limbs close, reclaiming the small pocket of warmth you left behind. The bed feels colder than before, but also familiar. You curl into the position you practiced earlier. Clothing settles. Straw shifts. Your breath slows again. The bell has done its work. Night prayer fractures sleep, but it also structures it. Without this interruption, the night might stretch endlessly. With it, time gains shape. You close your eyes, aware that rest will return quickly now. Fatigue deepens after interruption. The body accepts sleep more readily. As you settle, the cold feels less aggressive. Perhaps because you know it now. It has shown its worst. You have risen and returned. You have endured this cycle once. There will be more nights like this. More bells. More cold floors. More chants rising into darkness. For now, though, you allow your body to sink back into stillness. Breath evens out. Muscles soften just enough. The monastery grows quiet again, holding you in its cold. Ordered embrace, as sleep resumes its patient. Shallow hold. Sleep returns, but it feels thinner now. Stretched after interruption. Your body settles more quickly than before, yet it does not sink as deeply. Fatigue presses down, heavy and dull, while alertness lingers just beneath the surface. This is the pattern you begin to recognize. Rest here is never whole. It comes in fragments, shaped by bells and cold and obligation. You drift off knowing you will be called back again before morning truly arrives. Your breathing evens out. Slower now. Steadier. Muscles loosen just enough to stop aching. The bed remains firm. The straw unchanged. But your body has learned its contours. Familiarity softens resistance. Still, sleep stays light. You are aware of small changes. A shift of air, a distant sound, someone turning nearby. Each stimulus pulls you closer to waking, then releases you again. This broken rest was not considered a failure in monastic life. In fact, many rules and commentaries treat it as ideal, continuous. Deep sleep was sometimes viewed with suspicion, associated with indulgence or spiritual laxity. Waking during the night kept the mind from drifting too far inward. You feel that now. Even as you rest, a part of you remains oriented outward. Listening, the dormitory never disappears completely. Your dreams, when they come, are brief and unformed. They flicker like reflections on stone. A corridor, a window, snow falling in silence. These images dissolve before they can settle. Cold shapes these dreams too. You sense it even in sleep. A steady pressure that keeps you from floating too far away. It anchors you in the body. You wake again, just enough to adjust your position. Your hip aches faintly. You roll carefully, repeating the slow ritual you have learned. Shift. Pause. Let warmth return. Stillness. Nearby, someone sighs softly. The sound carries a hint of weariness. Not frustration, just acceptance. You recognize it. It matches your own. The night stretches. Time feels thick here, unmeasured by clocks. Without light, without markers, hours lose their edges. You cannot tell if it has been minutes or much longer since you lay back down. This uncertainty is part of the experience. Without knowing how long remains, you focus on what is happening now, the breath, the cold, the weight of your body. Some descriptions from the period suggest that monks grew accustomed to this rhythm so deeply that uninterrupted sleep felt strange to them. Their bodies learned to rest in segments, to recover through repetition rather than duration. Your body begins to understand this too. Each time you wake and settle again, rest accumulates in small amounts, not refreshing, but sufficient. The cold shifts subtly as the night deepens. It feels heavier now, less sharp. Stone has given up most of its stored warmth. The air feels denser. Breathing feels slower. You tuck your hands closer, protecting fingers that have grown stiff again. You consider rubbing them together, then decide against it. Movement risks losing more heat than it gains. Instead, you focus on breathing warmth inward. Inhale slowly through the nose. Exhale gently through the mouth, letting warmth linger near your collar. This small technique helps. Just enough. Your thoughts wander toward the idea of exhaustion. Not the dramatic kind, but a quiet, all-over weariness that settles into bones. This is holy exhaustion, some might say. Others might simply call it being tired. You feel both interpretations at once. There is no resentment in the room, no anger at the interruption. That emotion would require energy. What remains is endurance. You think briefly of how modern discussions of sleep emphasize uninterrupted cycles and optimal conditions. Those ideas feel distant here. Rest is not optimized. It is managed. And yet, there is something strangely calming about knowing you are not meant to feel fully restored. Expectations are lower. The body does what it can. You wake again to a faint sound, unsure what it is at first. Then you recognize it as wind brushing along the outer wall. It sounds slower now, more deliberate. The storm, if there is one, has settled. You listen until the sound becomes familiar, then fade back toward sleep. This pattern repeats. Light sleep, brief waking, adjustment, return. Each cycle smooths the edges of awareness. You notice that your mind is quieter now. Fewer thoughts rise. When they do, they pass quickly. Fatigue strips away complexity. This is perhaps what was valued here. A mind too tired to wander far. A body too cold to seek comfort. Attention narrows naturally. You become aware of the bell in anticipation before it sounds. Some part of you expects it. The night has a shape now, You are inside it. When the bell does ring again, later, it does not shock you. It arrives as expected. Part of the rhythm. You surface toward it without surprise. But for now, there is still space to rest. You lie still, listening to breath and wind and the subtle sounds of stone contracting in cold. The monastery feels settled, holding its shape. Sleep does not deepen, but it steadies. It becomes a calm, shallow pool rather than a plunge. You float near the surface, held there by cold and routine. And in that floating state, between wakefulness and rest, you begin to understand that here, sleep is not about escape. It is about persistence. Each fragment adds up. Each return to stillness counts. The night continues, patient and unyielding, while you rest within it as best you can, learning to accept broken sleep as the only sleep available. The absence of fire becomes more noticeable as the night stretches on. You realize it not because you expect flames, but because your body keeps searching for a source of warmth that never arrives. There is no hearth glowing softly at the edge of the dormitory, no embers hidden behind stone, just cold air, steady and impartial. Fire, in this place, is a carefully controlled presence. It belongs to kitchens, to workshops, to infirmaries when illness demands it. It does not belong to sleeping spaces. The risk of flame in a room full of straw and wool is too great. Safety, once again, outweighs comfort. You feel the logic of this rule as much as you understand it. Straw beneath you would catch instantly. Wool would smoulder. Stone walls would not save you if fire took hold. The memory of past fires lingered in many monasteries, sometimes preserved in charred beams or rebuilt wings. Nighttime was especially dangerous. Because of that, most monks slept without any direct heat source at all. Even in the harshest winters, fires were kept away from dormitories. This was not negligence. It was caution learned through loss. You imagine what a small fire might do for you right now. The glow, the warmth spreading outward, the relief in your joints. Then you imagine how quickly that same fire could turn the room into chaos. Panic, smoke, trampled straw. The thought fades. Instead, the monastery relies on bodies and walls and routine. Warmth is meant to come from within or not at all. Some monasteries did allow limited warming practices before bed. A visit to the kitchen hearth. A brief pause near a fire in a workroom. These moments were short, controlled, and shared. They offered temporary relief, not lasting comfort. You remember passing a hearth earlier in the day. The way heat clung to your clothes afterward. That warmth feels distant now, like a memory of summer. The cold presses into your joints again. Knees ache faintly. Your lower back stiffens. Without fire, the body has no chance to reset fully. It remains in a constant state of mild contraction, guarding heat. You shift slightly, then stop. The straw beneath you sighs, then stills. You wait, listening. No reaction. You settle again. The absence of fire also changes the smell of the room. Without smoke, the air stays clean but sharp. There is no comforting scent to soften the night. Just wool, breath, and cold stone. Some records mention that monks believed enduring cold without fire strengthened discipline and humility. Others simply describe it as necessary. Wood was valuable. Firewood had to be gathered, stored, rationed. Burning it through the night for sleep would have been wasteful. You consider how different this is from modern ideas of comfort. We use heat to push winter away. Here, winter is allowed inside, as long as it behaves. The building itself feels colder without fire nearby. Stone walls absorb chill deeply when unopposed. Over weeks of winter, they become reservoirs of cold that no single hearth could undo. Your breath feels heavier now. Each inhale draws in cold air that cools your chest before your body can warm it. Exhaling feels like a small release, warmth leaving you again. You focus on breathing slowly. Faster breaths bring in more cold. Slower breaths conserve warmth. This rhythm becomes instinctive. Nearby, someone shivers briefly. The movement is small, controlled, quickly stilled. Shivering wastes energy. It is a last resort. Everyone here knows that. There is an odd clarity that comes with this kind of cold. Your thoughts sharpen briefly. Then, simplify. Complex worries fade. Only immediate sensations remain. You think of how fire changes social spaces. People gather around it. Conversation flows. Here, without fire, the dormitory encourages stillness and inward focus. There is nothing to gather around, nothing to watch. Darkness and cold work together. They narrow attention. They quiet the mind. Some monks believed this environment made prayer more sincere. With no distractions, thoughts turned naturally toward reflection. Others likely endured it without attaching deeper meaning. Both experiences could exist side by side. You feel your shoulders tense again. You consciously let them drop slightly. Conserving energy. Muscles learn to hold less. The cold is steady now, no longer changing rapidly. It has reached a kind of equilibrium. Your body has adjusted as much as it will. You wonder how newcomers coped during their first winters. The shock must have been intense. Over time, tolerance would grow. Expectations would shift. What once felt unbearable would become familiar. That familiarity did not mean comfort. It meant predictability. You rest in that predictability now. No fire will appear. No sudden warmth will arrive. Knowing this removes a layer of waiting. Your mind drifts toward half sleep again. Thoughts loosen. Images flicker briefly, then fade. You hear a faint crack from somewhere in the building, possibly wood contracting, possibly ice shifting. It does not concern you anymore. The sound passes without raising your heart rate. The absence of fire also means the absence of light. Darkness remains complete. Candles are not burned through the night here. Oil is precious. Light is rationed. This darkness deepens the sense of isolation from the outside world. There is no moonlight inside these walls. No glow from hearths. Just shadow and shape. Your eyes remain closed. There is nothing to see anyway. You feel your body grow heavier again. Fatigue builds quietly, layer by layer. Even without warmth, exhaustion brings a kind of release. Sleep returns. Shallow but steady. You float just beneath the surface. Aware of cold, but no longer reacting to it strongly. The monastery holds its breath around you. Stone, straw, wool, and human bodies share the same cold space. Enduring together. Fire will return in the morning. In kitchens and workrooms. It will warm hands and food and tools. But for now, it stays absent, deliberately withheld. And in that absence, you learn another lesson of the night. Warmth is not guaranteed. Rest does not require comfort. The body adapts when the mind stops expecting more. You settle deeper into stillness, conserving what heat you have, letting the long winter night continue without flame, without mercy, and without interruption. Your breath becomes something you notice again, not because it changes, but because it is the only warm thing you can feel with certainty. Each exhale brushes your face and collar, then disappears. Each inhale feels thin and cold, like drinking winter air. You become aware of how shared this air is. In the dormitory, dozens of breaths mingle and linger. The room is not sealed. Fresh air slips in through unseen gaps. But much of what you breathe has already passed through other lungs. It is warmed slightly, then cooled again by stone. This shared air carries quiet signs of life. A faint wheeze from someone farther down the row. A slow, heavy breath nearby that suggests deep exhaustion. Another that stops briefly, then resumes, as if the sleeper forgot to breathe for a moment. You listen without judgment. These sounds no longer pull you fully awake. They are familiar now, part of the room's texture. On colder nights, breath itself could become visible indoors. In some accounts, monks describe seeing faint clouds form in the darkness when they exhaled, especially in northern regions or at higher elevations. Whether this happened often or only during severe cold is uncertain, but you can imagine it easily now. Your own breath feels colder than before. The air seems to have dropped another degree. Stone has finished releasing whatever warmth it held. Now it only reflects the cold back at you. You pull your chin closer to your chest, creating a small pocket where warm breath gathers. It helps. Not much, but enough to notice. You hold still, careful not to disturb that fragile warmth. The dormitory feels fuller now, heavier with the presence of bodies. Even without touching, you sense others around you. Heat radiates faintly from them, creating subtle currents in the air. These currents mix and fade quickly. This closeness offers comfort and risk at the same time. Illness spreads easily in such spaces. Cold weakens resistance. Winter was often the season when coughs deepened and fevers lingered. Monastic records from infirmaries mention this quietly, without drama. Yet the arrangement persisted. Community mattered. Isolation was not the answer. You notice that your breath has slowed further. Longer pauses between inhales. Your body is conserving energy. This is not deliberate. It happens on its own. A faint crackle draws your attention. Someone nearby shifts, and a layer of frost that formed on their sleeve breaks silently. You had not noticed it forming, but now you understand that moisture from breath settles on fabric and freezes slowly. Wool can hold that frost without showing it. This detail makes the cold feel more real. It is not just in the air. It clings. You consider how the body manages heat in such conditions. Blood retreats from extremities. Core temperature is protected at all costs. Fingers and toes pay the price. Your hands are numb now, but not painfully so. Sensation fades into dull awareness. You resist the urge to move them. Movement would expose them to colder air. You listen again to the room. Breathing dominates now. It rises and falls in uneven waves. There is something steadying about it, a reminder that everyone here is still alive, still enduring. The sound of breath also marks time. Without bells or light, you count moments by inhales and exhales. Not precisely, just enough to feel time passing. Some monks believe that paying attention to breath helped quiet the mind. Whether taught intentionally or discovered through experience, this focus appears in several descriptions of night prayer and rest. You practice it now, without calling it anything. Inhale. Pause. Exhale. Pause. Your thoughts soften. The edges blur. Cold remains, but it no longer demands commentary. The air smells different now. Sharper. Less human. As hours pass, breath carries less warmth, less scent. Cold air dominates. You hear a faint sound from outside, perhaps snow shifting on the roof, perhaps ice forming along an edge. The sound is delicate, almost like a whisper. It does not disturb you. Inside, the room feels settled. No one moves much now. Fatigue has deepened. Bodies have found their balance between stillness and tolerance. You feel your own body sink further into that balance. Muscles stop adjusting. They hold quietly. The breath near your face feels warmer now, or perhaps you are simply noticing it more. It forms a rhythm you can follow downward into rest. You are dimly aware that another bell will come eventually. The thought no longer causes resistance. It feels inevitable, like dawn after night. For now, the night stretches on, cold and shared. Breath continues to rise and fall, marking life in the darkness. Your eyelids feel heavy. You let them stay closed. There is nothing else to do. In this room of stone and straw and wool, breath becomes the softest, most human sound. It connects you to others without words. It reminds you that even in cold, even in discomfort, life continues quietly. And as you follow your own breath deeper into shallow sleep, you find a fragile peace there. Not warmth, not comfort, just presence. The air moves in and out of you. The room breathes with you. And the winter night holds. You wake again with a dull awareness rather than a clear moment of rising. Your body feels heavier now, as if the cold has settled into it instead of resting on the surface. There is an ache in your joints that was not there earlier. Knees, hips, shoulders, nothing sharp. Just a persistent stiffness that makes even the idea of movement feel tiring. This is where winter nights begin to test more than patience. They test health. In the medieval world, cold and illness were closely linked in everyday understanding. People did not speak of bacteria or viruses, but they noticed patterns. More coughs in winter, more fevers, more lingering weakness. Cold was not seen as the cause of sickness on its own, but it was believed to open the body to imbalance. You feel that vulnerability now. Your chest feels tight, not painful, just aware of each breath. The air is cold and dry. It irritates the throat slightly. You swallow once, then remain still. Monastic infirmaries existed for a reason. Records show that monks frequently needed care during winter months. Joint pain, chest complaints, fatigue. These were common enough to be expected, not exceptional. And yet, the dormitory remained the same. Cold nights did not stop. The rhythm continued. You notice someone coughing nearby. It is controlled, restrained, as if the person is trying not to draw attention. The sound repeats a few times, then stops. Silence returns. There is a quiet tension in that sound. Not fear exactly, but awareness. Illness here is not private. It unfolds within earshot of others. You consider how difficult it would be to recover fully in this environment. Sleep is broken. Warmth is scarce. The body never fully relaxes. Healing must work harder. Some monastic communities allowed the sick to sleep separately, closer to a fire, wrapped in extra coverings. This was mercy, not indulgence. But places were limited. Most endured mild illness without relocation. You test your fingers again. Sensation returns slowly as you flex them inside your sleeves. They feel clumsy, as if wrapped in thick gloves. You stop moving before the cold reclaims them. The ache in your joints deepens slightly as you remain still. Cold stiffens connective tissue. The longer you lie unmoving, the more pronounced it becomes. Yet moving too much invites greater heat loss. This balance is difficult. You learn it by feel rather than thought. You remember earlier nights in warmer seasons, how sleep came easier, how the body recovered more quickly. Winter strips those advantages away. Some medieval writers described winter as a time when the body weakened and the soul was tested. Whether they believed this literally or used it as metaphor is hard to say. What matters is that winter demanded more from everyone. You shift your weight carefully, easing pressure from one hip. The movement sends a dull ache through your lower back, then settles. You breathe through it. Pain here is not dramatic. It does not demand attention. It simply persists. Over time, it becomes part of the background, like the cold itself. You listen to the breathing around you. It sounds heavier now, slower. Others feel this too. The dormitory shares discomfort as much as warmth. You think briefly of older monks. How joints worn by years of labor and prayer must have suffered in nights like this. The thought brings a quiet respect. Endurance here is cumulative. Some records suggest that monks adjusted their expectations of health in winter. Feeling tired, stiff, unwell was accepted as seasonal. Only severe illness prompted concern. You feel a slight tightness in your throat again. You swallow, then breathe slowly. Panic would only tighten muscles further. Calm conserves energy. The cold remains steady. It does not worsen. But it does not retreat. It presses into your bones, making them feel heavier, denser. You become aware of how much effort your body is putting into simply maintaining itself. Circulation, temperature, breath, all of it happens quietly, constantly. This awareness brings a strange sense of humility. You realize how fragile comfort really is. Remove warmth and rest becomes labor. You rest your hand against your chest, feeling your heartbeat. It is steady, slow, reliable. That steadiness reassures you. You think of how monks understood health, not as constant comfort, but as the ability to continue, to rise when called, to work when needed, to pray when required. By that measure, you are still well enough. Sleep drifts near again, but it remains light. Your body does not fully let go. It stays alert, guarding against stiffness and chill. You allow your thoughts to soften. You do not dwell on pain. You do not imagine sickness. You stay with what is happening now. Breath in, breath out. The cough does not return. The room remains quiet. Over time, the ache in your joints becomes less noticeable, not because it disappears, but because your attention shifts. Fatigue dulls. Sensation. This is how nights like this pass, not through relief, but through adaptation. You feel yourself drifting again, hovering near sleep. The cold holds you at the surface, but does not push you away entirely. Health here is not about feeling good. It is about enduring quietly. And as you lie there, breathing slowly, joints aching softly, you understand that winter nights in this monastery shape the body as much as the spirit. They leave marks that are felt more than seen. Sleep returns in fragments once more, carrying you gently forward through the cold, toward whatever strength morning will require. Silence presses in more firmly now, not because sound has vanished, but because it has become regulated. You sense it the way you sense the weight of cold. It is not absence. It is presence, carefully maintained. In this dormitory, silence is not natural. It is enforced through habit, expectation, and quiet fear of correction. Even half asleep, you are aware of it. Your body knows how loud it might be if it moved carelessly. You become conscious of every small sound you make. The scrape of fabric against straw, the soft click of teeth as you swallow. Even your breath feels like something that must be moderated. This awareness tightens your stillness. You lie carefully, minimizing motion, holding yourself in a way that feels controlled rather than relaxed. Silence shapes posture. Monastic rules from many orders emphasized silence at night with particular intensity. Words were seen as unnecessary during hours meant for rest and prayer. But silence also had a practical role. In a shared space, noise spreads quickly. One careless sound could wake many. You feel that responsibility now. Your rest is tied to everyone else's. A faint sound breaks the quiet. Somewhere along the far wall, a sleeper shifts too abruptly. Straw rustles louder than intended. The sound feels sharp in the stillness. You freeze, listening. Nothing happens. No reprimand. No movement from a supervisor. The sound dissolves back into silence. Relief passes through the room almost invisibly. No one reacts outwardly, but you feel the collective easing. Silence returns, thicker than before. This constant awareness shapes the night. It keeps you hovering near wakefulness, even when sleep pulls at you. A part of your mind remains alert, listening for cues. You notice how different this is from silence in modern spaces. Today, silence is often created by isolation. Here, it is created by restraint. You hear someone clear their throat softly. Carefully, the sound is controlled, almost apologetic. It stops quickly. You adjust your position a fraction, then stop, measuring the sound your movement might make. This caution has become instinctive. Some accounts from monasteries mention the anxiety of night silence, not fear of the dark, but fear of being heard. A cough too loud, a movement too sudden. These could draw attention and correction. Correction was rarely harsh, but it was humiliating. Public acknowledgement of disruption mattered more than punishment. You imagine the supervising monk, perhaps resting lightly at one end of the dormitory, listening, even in sleep. Whether or not this is true tonight, the possibility shapes behavior. Silence here is not peaceful. It is vigilant. And yet, there is something calming about shared restraint. Everyone participates. Everyone carries the same burden of quiet. You listen again to the breathing around you. It remains steady, subdued. No snoring, no murmurs. Sleep here has learned to be quiet. In winter, this silence feels heavier. Sound travels farther in cold air. Stone reflects it sharply. Even small noises feel exposed. You become aware of your own heartbeat for a moment. It feels loud in your ears. You slow your breathing, letting the rhythm settle. Your mind wanders briefly, then returns. The silence pulls you back again and again. There is nowhere else for thought to go. Some monks believed that silence purified the mind, stripping away unnecessary thought. Others likely experienced it as pressure. Both interpretations could coexist. You feel both. The longer the silence holds, the more your thoughts thin out, not because they are resolved, but because there is no space for them to echo. You notice that even discomfort feels quieter now. The ache in your joints remains, but it no longer demands commentary. It simply exists. Silence makes sensation feel closer, more intimate. Without sound, the body becomes louder. You hear the faintest crack somewhere above. Wood shifting, ice settling. The sound is brief, distant. It does not break the silence so much as ripple through it. You let it pass. The discipline of silence teaches patience, waiting without distraction, enduring without complaint. These lessons are learned slowly, night after night. You feel your eyelids grow heavier again. Sleep approaches, cautious and light. Just as you begin to drift, a sharper sound cuts through the room. A dropped object, perhaps a shoe knocked loose. It clatters softly, but clearly. Your heart jumps, so does everyone else's. You imagine. A pause follows, long enough to feel uncomfortable. Then nothing. No voice. No movement. Silence absorbs the sound once more. You breathe out slowly, releasing tension you did not realize you were holding. This moment lingers. It reminds you how fragile silence is, how easily broken, how quickly restored. You settle again, careful not to add to it. The night continues in this controlled quiet. Sound appears only briefly, then vanishes. Each time, it reminds you where you are. Silence here is not empty. It is full of listening. And as you lie still, wrapped in cold and quiet, you understand that sleep in this monastery is shaped as much by what you do not do as by what you do. You do not speak. You do not move freely. You do not escape into deep rest. Instead, you remain present, contained, sharing the burden of silence with everyone around you. Gradually, this shared vigilance eases your mind. There is nothing left to decide. The rules have decided for you. Sleep returns again, shallow and careful, held in place by cold, stone, and the quiet agreement of dozens of resting bodies. The silence holds. Dreams arrive differently here. They do not unfold in long, to coherent scenes. Instead, they appear in fragments, shaped by cold, fatigue, and the rhythm of prayer that still echoes faintly in your body. You slip into them without noticing the moment it happens. At first, they feel thin, pale images drift through your mind, lacking color and detail. A corridor that stretches longer than it should, a window rimmed with frost, the sound of a bell without its source. These impressions come and go, never fully forming. Cold has a way of entering dreams. You feel it even there, pressing at the edges of your awareness. It keeps the dreams shallow, close to the surface. You do not sink far enough to lose yourself completely. You dream of warmth briefly, not a specific place, just a sensation, a glow against your chest. It fades almost immediately, replaced by the familiar heaviness of winter air. The contrast pulls you closer to waking, then releases you again. Faith shapes dreams too. The words chanted earlier linger in your thoughts. They reappear as rhythms rather than language. Repetition without meaning. Soothing and dull. Your mind replays them the way the body remembers motion. Some monks wrote of dreams as spiritual tests. Others warned against trusting them at all. Night visions could be distractions, temptations, or simply the result of hunger and exhaustion. The boundary between dream and waking thought was not always clear. You feel that uncertainty now. Are you dreaming? Or are you half awake? Imagining images because your mind refuses to rest completely. The question dissolves before you can answer it. Your body shifts slightly in sleep. A knee moves. A shoulder tightens. The movement pulls you closer to awareness for a moment. Then you settle again. The bed beneath you remains firm, unchanged, anchoring you. Dreams flicker again. This time, they are shaped by sound. You hear footsteps echoing through stone corridors. Though you know no one is walking, you hear wind whispering words you cannot understand. These sounds blend with real noises from the building, merging imagination and reality. The cold sharpens these experiences. It keeps your mind alert even while dreaming. There is no deep plunge into unconsciousness. Everything remains near the surface. You dream of being watched, not with fear, but with awareness, as if the walls themselves are paying attention. This reflects the dormitory, the sense of being seen even in rest. Then the dream shifts. You are standing in the church again, chanting. Your breath fogs in the air. Your voice blends with others. The sound feels endless. There is no beginning or end, just rhythm. This dream feels heavier, slower. It lingers longer than the others, perhaps because it mirrors waking experience closely. The mind holds on to what it knows. You wake briefly, uncertain whether the chant was real. The dormitory is quiet. Only breathing surrounds you. You let the moment pass. Sleep returns again, cautious and light. Some dreams carry discomfort rather than images. You feel pressure on your chest, as if something heavy rests there. It is not frightening, just present. Cold, weight, fatigue blend into a single sensation. You dream of effort, of trying to move but moving slowly, of lifting yourself from the bed and feeling resistance in every joint. These dreams echo the body's reality. There is no escape in them, no flight, no warmth waiting beyond the edge, just continuation. You notice that even in dreams, you do not speak. Silence follows you there. Words feel unnecessary or unavailable. Communication happens through sensation instead. This silence deepens the dreams, making them feel more internal, less narrative, more emotional. You sense time passing without markers. Dreams do not tell you how long you have slept. They simply appear and fade. At one point, you dream of light, pale and distant. Dawn, perhaps, though you know it is too early. The light does not warm. It only illuminates briefly, then disappears. You stir again. Your breath catches for a moment, then steadies. The cold remains, unchanged. Your body has not moved far. Some accounts from monks describe dreams as more intense during winter. Hunger and cold sharpened imagination. Others claimed the opposite, that exhaustion flattened dreams into vague impressions. Both descriptions feel true at once. You drift between them. Dreams become quieter as fatigue deepens. Images thin out. Sensations soften. The mind gives up trying to create stories and settles into simple awareness. You rest in that awareness, not fully asleep, not fully awake. The cold still presses in, but you no longer react to it strongly. It feels distant now, like something happening around you rather than to you. Your breathing remains slow and even. The rhythm carries you forward. In this half state, faith and body blur together. Prayer becomes breath. Discipline becomes posture. Cold becomes background. You sense the night moving toward its later hours, not through clocks or bells, but through subtle changes. The air feels slightly different, less active, more settled. Dreams fade almost entirely. What remains is a gentle awareness. Like floating just beneath the surface of water, you rest there, suspended. When the next sound comes, it will pull you back fully. But for now, you remain in this fragile space, where sleep and waking overlap, shaped by cold, silence, and routine. And in that space, you find a quiet acceptance. Dreams no longer demand attention. The body rests as much as it can. The night continues, carrying you gently forward, toward whatever the next bell will ask of you. You sense the approach of the next waking before it happens, not through sound, but through a subtle tightening inside your body, as if some internal thread is being drawn slowly upward. Sleep grows thinner. Awareness rises. This is the strange discipline of nights like this. Over time, the body learns the rhythm, even without conscious thought. It begins to anticipate interruption. Rest is no longer a deep surrender. It is a careful balance. You lie still, waiting. Breath, slow. Listening inward rather than outward. When the bell finally comes, it feels almost expected. Its tone rolls through the monastery again, steady and unhurried. It does not rush you. It does not apologize. It simply announces that the next movement of the night has arrived. Your eyes open. Darkness remains, but it feels different now, less oppressive, more familiar. Fatigue weighs heavily on you, but it is a softened weight, not sharp, not urgent, just present. Your body knows what to do. You sit up slowly, feeling stiffness immediately. The cold that settled during sleep grips your joints again. Knees complain. Your back resists straightening. You pause, breathing through the sensation until it loosens slightly. Around you, others are doing the same. The dormitory stirs quietly, like an animal waking without panic. No one groans. No one speaks. Movement is measured and practiced. There has been long debate among historians about how strictly monks followed these night schedules in reality. Written rules describe precise hours and exact prayers. Lived experience likely varied. Weather, illness, age, and local custom all played a role. Some nights were followed to the letter. Others were adjusted quietly. You feel that ambiguity now. The rule exists, but the body negotiates with it. You stand again, bracing briefly before placing weight on your feet. The stone floor sends its familiar shock upward. Cold travels quickly through fabric, reminding you that warmth never belongs to you for long. You follow the others out of the dormitory, moving with the group more than by sight. Corridors feel less foreign now. You know where the walls narrow, where the floor dips slightly. Your body remembers even when your mind is tired. The church welcomes you again with its wide, cold stillness. It feels larger at this hour, emptier somehow. The darkness above seems deeper, the ceiling farther away. You take your place without thinking, kneeling this time, perhaps, or standing if joints protest. Posture matters less than presence now. The body does what it can. Chant begins again, lower and slower than before. Voices sound rougher. Fatigue has settled into throats and lungs, yet the rhythm holds. You feel how chanting pulls warmth upward through your chest again. Breath deepens. Muscles engage. The body wakes reluctantly. then steadies. This is where exhaustion and devotion blur together. You cannot separate whether you chant because you believe or because the rule asks it of you. Perhaps both are true. Some modern scholars argue that this constant fragmentation of sleep would have been harmful. Others suggest the body adapts surprisingly well to segmented rest. Evidence exists for both views. What is certain is that this rhythm shaped how monks experienced time itself. You feel time differently now. Minutes stretch. Moments blur. There is no rush toward morning. Only movement through obligation. Your thoughts drift during chant. Then return. You think of nothing specific. Just sensation. Cold air in your lungs. Sound leaving your mouth. The weight of your body pressing into the floor. There is a peculiar calm in this, with the mind too tired to wander far. Attention narrows naturally. The chant ends again. Silence returns. Heavier now. The sound seems to hang in the air for a moment before dissolving. You remain still, breathing quietly. The cold creeps back quickly as movement stops. You feel it in your knees first, then your lower back. The return to the dormitory feels slower this time. Fatigue deepens with each cycle. The body grows heavier, less responsive. You lower yourself back onto the straw with care. The bed feels unforgiving now. Pressure points announce themselves immediately. You adjust once, then stop. Further movement feels costly. As you lie back down, you realize something subtle has changed. The night no longer feels endless. It has shape now, defined by repetition. Bell. Rise. Prayer. Return. Each cycle shortens what remains. You feel closer to morning, even without knowing the hour. Sleep returns again, but it is thinner still. Your body sinks only shallowly into rest. Awareness remains close. This is where questions about historical reality become complicated. Did monks truly sleep this way every night? Or did rules soften over time? Did some sleep through bells unnoticed? Likely yes. Likely no. The truth probably shifted from place to place. What you feel now is not theory. It is experience. Your breathing steadies. Muscles loosen slightly. Fatigue presses down like a blanket that does not warm but does quiet. You drift again, hovering near sleep. Thoughts come and go without attachment. Images flicker faintly, then fade. The cold remains constant. It no longer feels like an opponent. It feels like a condition you have accepted. You sense others around you settling again. The dormitory grows still. Silence reasserts itself gently. At this stage of the night, something else appears. A quiet intimacy with discomfort. You are no longer fighting it. You are sharing space with it. The ache in your joints softens. Not because it disappears, but because your attention no longer feeds it. The body adapts once more. Sleep does not deepen, but it steadies. You rest in fragments, stitched together by routine. And in that stitched rest, you understand something important. Nights like this were not meant to restore fully. They were meant to sustain, enough rest to rise again, enough strength to continue. Morning will bring its own challenges. Cold water, work, prayer. But for now, the night continues its slow unwinding. You remain still, breathing quietly, held by stone and silence and shared fatigue, drifting forward toward the final hours before dawn. The cold you feel now is not the same cold from earlier in the night. It has settled into a deeper layer of the body, no longer sharp or surprising. It feels older, heavier, as if it belongs here. You sense it in your bones more than on your skin. This is where geography quietly matters. Not every monastery faced winter in the same way, even lying here, half awake. You begin to understand how location shaped nights like this. A monastery in northern England or the German lands endured a different winter than one in southern Italy or coastal Spain. Snow depth, wind exposure, humidity, and elevation all changed how cold entered stone walls. You imagine this same dormitory further north, thicker frost on the windows, breath turning fully white indoors, straw stiffening beneath the body, winter stretching longer, darker, more demanding. Then you imagine a monastery closer to the Mediterranean, cold still present, but damp rather than biting, stone walls holding moisture that seeps into joints, cold that chills slowly and lingers rather than striking sharply. Both versions of winter carry their own hardships. Written records from different regions reflect this variety. Northern communities often mention snow-blocking paths, frozen wells, and nights when water left in bowls turned to ice. Southern sources describe cold rain, persistent dampness, and air that never truly dries. Sleep was shaped by these differences even when rules remained similar. You feel fortunate and unfortunate at the same time. The cold here is dry enough to sting, but not wet enough to soak clothing. Damp cold seeps deeper, clings longer. Many monks feared it more. Your breath continues its slow rhythm. You notice how the air feels slightly drier now. Easier to breathe despite the chill. Stone absorbs moisture during the night, leaving air crisp. Some monasteries built in mountainous regions faced colder nights but benefited from clearer air. Others in river valleys dealt with fog and frost that crept indoors. The rule did not change for them. Wake, pray, rest. Geography adjusted the difficulty. You think of how monks traveling between houses would have noticed these differences immediately. A winter night that felt familiar in one place might feel brutal in another, yet adaptation was expected. The dormitory around you carries hints of this region. The thickness of the walls, the size of the windows, the angle of the roof. These details reveal builders responding to climate even when comfort remained secondary. You shift slightly, easing pressure from one shoulder. The straw beneath you feels brittle now, colder than before. It has lost what little warmth it held. Some monasteries use thicker straw in winter, replacing it more frequently. Others did not adjust. Supplies mattered. Straw had to be gathered, stored, rationed. You wonder how often bedding was truly refreshed during long winters, not as often as comfort would demand. You suspect. Your joints ache again as you move, reminding you that cold accumulates quietly. Knees feel stiff. Ankles complain faintly. This ache connects you to generations of bodies that endured the same thing. Winter pain was not exceptional. It was seasonal. In some regions, monks slept in woolen socks during winter nights. In others, this was discouraged or impractical. Socks wore out quickly. Wool was precious. Small variations like this made noticeable differences in comfort. You flex your feet inside your clothing, trying to coax warmth back. It works only briefly. The dormitory remains quiet. Others are resting as best they can. No one speaks. No one complains. You think about how silence and cold together create a particular kind of endurance. Without sound, discomfort feels louder. Without warmth, stillness feels heavier. And yet, there is also a strange stability here. The night follows its course. Nothing unexpected happens. No sudden storm. No emergency bell. Predictability becomes its own comfort. Some modern interpretations romanticize monastic life as peaceful and removed from hardship. Nights like this challenge that image. Peace existed, perhaps, but it was layered over effort and discipline. You feel that layering now. Fatigue sits on top of cold. Acceptance sits on top of fatigue. Your breathing remains slow. You focus on it again, letting the rhythm anchor you. Breath feels warmer now than the air around it. You guard that warmth carefully. The idea of dawn begins to form in your mind, not as light yet, but as possibility. Morning will bring movement. Movement brings warmth. You imagine walking again, blood flowing faster, stiffness easing slightly. The thought helps. Sleep hovers near again, but it remains light. Dreams do not return fully. Instead, Your mind rests in a quiet awareness. The cold here is no longer personal. It feels like part of the building, part of the land. You are sharing it rather than fighting it. You understand now how monks spoke of winter as something to live with rather than overcome. There was no victory in warmth, only survival through routine. Your body adapts once more, settling into a position that hurts the least. You stop adjusting. Further movement would cost more than it gives. The ache in your joints dulls again. Sensation softens. Fatigue deepens. Somewhere outside, the night continues its slow progression. Stars shift. Snow settles. Wind rests. Inside, the dormitory remains steady, holding dozens of resting bodies in the same cold embrace. You lie still, breathing quietly, aware that while winters differed across regions, the core experience remained. Cold stone, thin bedding, broken sleep, shared endurance. This shared experience bound communities together across geography. A monk in France, England, or Italy would recognize this night, even if the details differed. You feel connected to that wider world of quiet endurance. Sleep returns again, gentle and shallow. It carries you forward, closer to the moment when the first hint of morning will change the texture of the cold. For now, you remain here, suspended between rest and wakefulness, held by stone walls built for faith rather than warmth, enduring a winter night shaped as much by place as by rule. Age makes itself known most clearly at night. You feel it now, even if your own body is not old. The cold settles differently depending on how many winters a body has endured. Joints, remember. Lungs, remember. Muscles that once recovered quickly now hold stiffness longer. As you lie still, you imagine the older monks around you, men whose days of youthful resilience are long past. Their sleep here follows the same rules as yours, but their bodies respond differently. In the medieval monastery, age did not excuse you from the dormitory. Only serious illness granted separation. Most older monks slept on the same straw, under the same cold roof, rising to the same bells. You hear a slower breath nearby. It carries weight, effort. Each inhale takes a little longer, as if the chest resists expansion. This sound does not alarm you. It simply tells a story. Cold is especially unkind to aging joints. Knees stiffen first, then hips, then fingers. Arthritis, though not named as such, was well known. Monastic medical notes mention swollen joints and limited movement, especially in winter months. You imagine an older monk waking to the bell, knowing what awaits. The pain of standing, the slow process of straightening, the cold floor against feet that no longer tolerate shock well. Yet he rises anyway. This endurance was not celebrated loudly. There were no rewards for suffering quietly. It was simply expected. Some communities offered small allowances for age, a slightly thicker garment, a closer sleeping place to the wall where drafts were weaker. These adjustments were subtle, unofficial. Equality remained the ideal, but compassion found small ways to surface. You shift again, feeling your own joints complain faintly. Even youth stiffens under cold like this. You realize how quickly comfort is taken for granted. The older body does not bounce back from broken sleep easily. Each interruption leaves a deeper mark. Fatigue accumulates faster. Recovery slows. Yet older monks often carried authority. Experience granted them respect even as strength faded. Their presence in the dormitory reminded others that endurance was not temporary. It was lifelong. You listen to the breathing again. It remains steady. If slow, there is no panic in it, just persistence. Some historical accounts describe elders sleeping closer to the center of the dormitory, where shared warmth gathered. Whether this was deliberate or coincidental is unclear, but proximity mattered. You feel the faint warmth of others near you. Minimal but real. It softens the cold slightly. Shared bodies create microclimates. You think of how aging changes the experience of cold. Sensation dulls in some places, sharpens in others. Pain lingers longer. Nights feel longer. The bell, when it rings, must feel heavier to older ears. Each call asks more of a body with less to give. And yet, the rhythm continues, rising, praying, resting. The body adapts as it can. There is quiet dignity in this, not heroic, not dramatic, just consistent. You imagine an older monk lying awake now, joints aching, breath measured, mind calm. He has known nights like this for decades. They hold no novelty. Perhaps this familiarity brings a kind of peace. When expectation fades, resistance softens. You find yourself adopting that mindset. The cold remains, but you no longer ask when it will end. You accept that it will remain until morning. Your breathing slows again. Fatigue deepens. Muscles let go slightly. You wonder how many winters shaped these men. How many nights like this built their understanding of endurance? Some modern readers might see cruelty in such conditions. Others see discipline. The truth likely contains both. What is undeniable is that age did not shield anyone here from the environment. Stone walls did not bend for aching knees. Bells did not soften for tired lungs. Yet the community endured. Together. You feel that sense of shared endurance now. It extends beyond age, beyond individual discomfort. It binds everyone lying here. Your thoughts drift toward the idea of time passing through the body, how each winter leaves traces, how the body becomes a record of nights like this. You flex your fingers slightly, feeling stiffness. Then stop. The movement costs warmth. You decide stillness is better. Sleep returns again, thin and cautious. Dreams do not form this time. Awareness floats just above rest. The breathing nearby continues. Slow, reliable. You imagine dawn approaching. Not with warmth yet, but with movement. The older monks will rise again. Slowly, carefully, but they will rise. That knowledge steadies you. As you rest there, sharing space with bodies of many ages, you understand that winter nights in this monastery were not survived once. They were survived repeatedly, year after year. Age did not remove you from the rhythm. It deepened your relationship with it. Sleep carries you gently forward again, held by cold and silence. Closer to morning and the next demand the bell will place on every body, young and old alike. Belief settles in slowly, like another layer of clothing you did not realize you were wearing. It does not arrive with warmth or comfort. It arrives as something quieter, a way of holding the night without pushing back against it. As you lie there, cold, pressing into your body, you begin to understand how faith fills spaces that comfort cannot. There is no fire, no softness, no promise of relief before morning. And yet, the night does not feel empty. This is where belief works differently than you might expect. It does not remove pain. It does not cancel fatigue. Instead, it reframes them. Cold becomes part of a larger pattern. Discomfort becomes something with edges and meaning rather than chaos. You feel this shift not as a thought, but as a change in how you react. Earlier, each ache demanded attention. Each chill felt personal. Now, sensation remains. But it no longer feels like an interruption. It feels woven into the night itself. Many monks described faith as a shelter, not from weather, but from despair. Stone walls kept out wind. Belief kept out resentment. This distinction mattered deeply. You notice that your mind no longer searches for ways to improve the situation. You are not planning movements. You are not counting minutes. You are not waiting for warmth. That waiting has softened into something else. Acceptance does not mean liking the cold. It means no longer arguing with it. The prayers you chanted earlier return faintly, not as words, but as rhythm. That rhythm settles into your breathing. Inhale, Pause. Exhale. Pause. The body follows what the mind has learned. Faith here is not emotional. It is practical. It helps the body endure by quieting unnecessary struggle. You feel this quiet spread. Muscles loosen slightly. The ache in your joints remains, but it feels less sharp. Attention moves away from it. Some monks believed that discomfort stripped away distraction, leaving space for clarity. Others simply endured because there was no alternative. Both experiences could exist together. You realize that belief does not need certainty to function. It works even when doubts remain. Even when fatigue dulls thought. It works by offering a frame, not answers. You imagine lying here night after night, winter after winter. At first, resistance would be strong, then frustration. Eventually, something would shift. The mind would learn that fighting the cold wastes energy. Faith would fill that gap. This is not a dramatic realization. It is quiet, almost unnoticed. You feel your breath grow slower again. The room seems to recede slightly. The presence of others remains, but it feels less intrusive. Everyone is resting within their own small pocket of belief or habit or resignation. The cold still presses in, but it no longer feels like a threat. It feels like a condition that will pass when it passes. You think of how modern comfort often removes the need for this kind of mental adjustment. Heat replaces belief. Convenience replaces patience. Here, belief does the work comfort would normally do. This does not make belief easier. It makes it necessary. You sense a kind of inner steadiness forming. Not joy, not peace in the usual sense. More like balance. The night no longer feels like something to survive. It feels like something to inhabit. The silence supports this. Without conversation, without distraction, belief has room to settle. There is nothing else to lean on. You notice that your thoughts have grown fewer. When they appear, they are simple. Breath, cold, stillness. There is no space for long narratives. This simplicity feels grounding. It keeps you present. You think of the older monks again. How belief must have grown alongside their aging bodies. How faith became less about conviction and more about endurance. For them, belief likely felt less like a shield and more like a steady hand, something to hold on to when strength faded. You feel that hand now, metaphorically, not gripping, just present. Sleep approaches again, but this time it feels slightly deeper, not because the night has grown easier, but because your resistance has thinned. The body rests better when the mind stops fighting. You sink into this lighter rest, aware of cold but no longer reacting sharply to it. Awareness softens. Faith here is not loud. It does not announce itself. It hums quietly beneath fatigue. You breathe. You rest. You remain. The bell will come again. Morning will come eventually. None of that needs to be anticipated now. The night holds you, and belief helps you hold the night in return. And in that exchange, something subtle happens. The absence of comfort becomes less frightening. The lack of warmth becomes less urgent. You are still cold. You are still tired, but you are no longer unsettled. Sleep settles around you gently, stitched together by breath and routine and quiet conviction. Not the kind that promises relief, but the kind that promises continuity. You rest within that promise, letting the long winter night continue, knowing that belief, here, is not about escape. It is about staying. Morning does not arrive with warmth. It arrives with sound. The bell cuts through the last fragile layer of sleep, clearer and firmer than before. This is the bell that ends the night, not pauses it. You open your eyes at once, as if your body has been waiting for this permission to wake fully. Darkness still fills the dormitory, but it no longer feels endless. The air has changed slightly, not warmer, just different. The night has released its tightest hold. You sit up slowly. Stiffness greets you immediately. Your joints feel thick, reluctant. Knees protest. Your lower back resists straightening. Cold has settled deeply during the long hours of broken rest. This moment is harder than rising for night prayer. Then, you knew you would return to bed. Now, the bed is done with you. You lower your feet to the stone floor. The shock still stings, but it feels less surprising. Your body has learned what to expect. You breathe through it, letting blood move again. Around you, others are rising too. Movements are slower now. Fatigue is heavier. No one rushes. There is no need. The bell has been heard. This is the coldest moment of the day. Before movement, before work, before fire. You stand carefully, testing balance. Muscles feel tight, as if wrapped in bands. You stretch subtly, just enough to loosen them without drawing attention. The dormitory fills with the soft sounds of waking, fabric shifting, feet finding the floor, quiet breaths turning more purposeful. No one speaks. Morning silence holds. But it feels different from night silence. Less vigilant, more resigned. You gather your few belongings. Already worn, already cold. There is no sense of leaving comfort behind. There was none to leave. As you step into the corridor, the air feels even colder. Dormitory warmth, such as it was, vanishes quickly. Stone walls greet you again with their stored chill. Your breath fogs faintly now. You watch it for a moment, then look ahead. Movement begins to bring warmth, slowly at first. Blood flows faster. Fingers regain sensation, then ache briefly as feeling returns. You clench and release your hands, encouraging circulation. This ache is sharp but short-lived. It is the pain of waking the body rather than the dull ache of night. You join the line toward the church once more. Morning prayer comes before anything else. Before food, before fire, before work. The church interior feels vast and cold, but less intimidating now. You have stood here before tonight. You know what to expect. Shot rise again. Steadier than during the night. Voices sound clearer. The body is waking even as it protests. The sound fills the space, warming it psychologically, if not physically. Breath deepens. Muscles engage. Heat begins to build from movement rather than rest. You feel it in your chest first, then your arms. Cold loosens its grip slightly. Morning prayer feels different from night prayer. There is less struggle to stay awake. Fatigue remains, but purpose sharpens attention. When the chant ends, you feel a shift. The night is officially over. You leave the church with others. Moving toward the next part of the day, the corridor still bites with cold, but your body is better prepared now. The idea of warmth begins to form. Not immediate warmth, not comfort, but the possibility of it. Somewhere, a fire will be lit. In the kitchen, in the workroom, not here. But soon, that knowledge changes how the cold feels. It becomes temporary. You step outside briefly, perhaps to cross a courtyard. The air is sharper here, open and exposed. Frost crunches beneath your feet. The sky is pale, just beginning to lighten. Your breath forms visible clouds now, drifting upward and disappearing. You feel small under the open sky, but alive. Returning indoors brings relief, even though it is still cold. Stone blocks wind. The monastery shelters you from the worst of it. As work begins, movement increases. Tasks demand attention. Carrying, lifting, walking. Blood flows faster. Heat builds slowly. Honestly, the stiffness in your joints eases bit by bit. Knees loosen. Back straightens more easily. The body remembers how to move. Cold still clings, especially in extremities, but it no longer dominates. You think back to the night just past, how long it felt, how narrow the world became. Now, space opens again. This contrast matters. Night hardship makes morning movement feel significant. Warmth feels earned. Some monks believed this daily cycle strengthened discipline and gratitude. Others simply accepted it as routine. Either way, the pattern shaped how the body experienced time. You realize that sleep, broken and cold as it was, did enough. You are tired, but functional. That was the goal. The monastery does not aim for comfort. It aims for continuity. As the day unfolds, the memory of the night will linger in your body, in the slight ache that remains, in the sensitivity to cold, in the appreciation of movement. Tonight will come again. Another cold bed, another dark dormitory. But for now, the night has released you. You move forward into the day, carrying the quiet lessons of winter sleep with you, not as thoughts, but as embodied knowledge. The bell has spoken. The cold has not vanished, but you are awake, standing, moving, and that, here, is enough. As the day unfolds, you begin to notice how the night follows you. It lingers in your body, not as exhaustion exactly, but as a subtle heaviness that shapes how you move, how you think, how you conserve energy. Winter sleep does not end when you rise. It carries forward, quietly influencing everything that comes after. Your muscles warm gradually through work. Each task draws blood outward, loosening stiffness bit by bit. Yet the memory of cold remains. You move carefully, deliberately, aware of limits. There is no wasted motion. This awareness was not accidental. Nights like the one you just endured trained the body to respect effort. Energy was precious. Every movement mattered. Monastic schedules reflected this understanding. Work in winter was often adjusted. Tasks were shorter, more contained, focused on maintenance rather than expansion. Fields slept under snow. Buildings slowed. Life turned inward. You feel that inwardness now, even as you work alongside others. Conversation remains limited. Silence continues to frame the day. Though it is lighter than at night, there is room for practical speech, but no idle talk. The body adapts to this rhythm. Broken sleep does not lead to collapse. It leads to pacing. You learn when to push and when to ease back. This pattern shaped monastic communities deeply. Nights of limited rest were balanced by days of steady, moderate labor. No sprinting, no indulgence, just continuity. You sense this balance in yourself. Fatigue hums in the background, but it does not overwhelm. It becomes part of your awareness, guiding choices. As the day progresses, warmth becomes available in small doses, passing near a hearth, standing in sunlight that filters weakly through a window. These moments feel significant, almost luxurious. You notice how carefully warmth is used. No one lingers too long near fire. Heat is shared briefly, then left behind. The goal is not comfort, but function. This careful relationship with warmth mirrors the relationship with sleep. Enough, but not excess. You think again of the dormitory, the straw bed, the cold stone. The memory sharpens your appreciation of these daytime moments. Warmth feels earned. Some monastic writings suggest that winter hardship strengthened communal bonds. Shared discomfort created understanding without words. You feel that connection now. You and those around you have endured the same night. That knowledge sits quietly between you. The body remembers what the mind does not dwell on. As afternoon approaches, fatigue deepens again. Not dramatically, just enough to soften attention. This is where winter sleep shows its long reach. It shapes the entire day, not just the night. You notice that tasks are approached methodically. There is no rush to finish early. Pace is steady, sustainable. The community moves like a single organism, conserving heat and strength. The architecture reinforces this. Narrow corridors reduce drafts. Thick walls hold what little warmth accumulates during daylight. Windows remain small, limiting heat loss. You become aware of how the building works with the rhythm rather than against it. Day and night complement each other. Cold and movement. Rest and labor. Some historians suggest that medieval people experienced sleep as part of a larger daily cycle rather than an isolated event. This feels true now. Sleep was not expected to restore fully on its own. It was one part of a continuous process. You sense that continuity in your own body. Rest. Work. Prayer. Cold. Warmth. None stand alone. As evening approaches again, light fades early. Winter shortens the day. Tasks conclude sooner. The monastery prepares for another night. You feel a familiar tension return. Not fear, but anticipation. The body remembers what awaits. As candles are lit briefly, shadows lengthen. The air cools again. Movement slows. You think of the coming night with less resistance than before. Experience has softened uncertainty. You know what will happen. You know you can endure it. This knowledge changes how the evening feels. The night no longer looms. It simply arrives. You eat simply. Food warms briefly, then fades. It does its work quietly. As darkness deepens, you prepare again. Clothing adjusted. Belongings set aside. Routine resumes. The day has carried the imprint of the night. Now the night will carry the imprint of the day. You realize how deeply winter sleep shaped monastic life. It was not an inconvenience to be solved. It was a condition around which everything else was arranged. This arrangement did not aim for comfort. It aimed for balance. You feel that balance now. Tired, but steady. Cold, but capable. As you move back toward the dormitory once more, you carry the lessons of the previous night with you, not as thoughts, but as embodied understanding. Sleep will come again, broken and cold, and you will meet it again, with less resistance. The cycle continues, quietly, shaping lives one winter night at a time. As another night approaches, you find yourself thinking differently about sleep than you once did. Not in words exactly, but in expectation. The idea of rest has shifted. It is no longer something separate from the day, no longer a private reward at its end. It is simply another phase in a continuous rhythm. Modern habits would struggle here. The desire for uninterrupted hours, the assumption that sleep must be deep and complete to be worthwhile. Those ideas feel distant now, almost fragile. You understand, in your body, that rest can arrive in pieces and still sustain you. The dormitory awaits again. Unchanged. Stone walls. Straw bedding. Wool clothing. Nothing has improved since last night. And nothing has worsened either. This sameness matters. There is no false hope. No disappointment. The environment makes no promises it cannot keep. You lie down again, familiar with the firmness beneath you. Your body remembers where pressure will build, where cold will settle first. That knowledge removes uncertainty. This familiarity is not comfort, but it is grounding. You think briefly of how modern discussions often frame medieval life as either brutally hard or romantically simple. Neither description feels accurate from here. Life is demanding. Yes, but it is also carefully structured. Hardship exists within boundaries. Sleep in this place is not chaos. It is regulated, expected, shared. You feel your breathing slow as you settle. The dormitory fills with the same sounds as before. Breath, fabric, occasional movement. Nothing surprises you. Your mind drifts toward comparison without effort. You think of soft beds, of darkness broken by screens, of rooms sealed against weather. Those comforts once felt essential. Now they feel optional. Not unnecessary, just optional. This realization does not carry judgment. It carries curiosity. How much of what you once thought you needed was habit rather than necessity? The cold presses in again, familiar and steady. You respond without panic. You adjust once, then remain still. This night, you do not measure time. You do not wait for bells. You let the rhythm carry you. Sleep arrives sooner than before, not deeper, but faster. Fatigue has learned the path. You wake lightly during the night. As expected, the bell sounds. You rise. You pray. You return. The cycle repeats without resistance. Each interruption feels less disruptive. The body anticipates and adapts. What once felt like deprivation now feels like routine. You realize something quietly important. Your expectations have changed more than your circumstances. Historians sometimes argue about whether medieval people experienced sleep deprivation as we would define it today. The question itself assumes modern standards. Here, those standards feel irrelevant. Sleep is not optimized. It is integrated. Your rest is shaped by prayer, by work, by cold, by silence. None can be separated. You feel less frustrated by waking now. There is no sense of loss. Nothing is being taken from you. This is simply how the night unfolds. Your dreams, when they appear, feel softer, less urgent. They pass without pulling you fully awake. You notice that your body recovers differently now, not through long sleep, but through repetition. Each fragment adds up. Each rest, however brief, contributes. This understanding settles deeply. It changes how you relate to fatigue. Tiredness becomes a signal to slow, not a failure. You feel gratitude for small things. A slightly warmer breath, a less stiff joint, a moment of stillness. These small improvements feel significant because expectations are modest. The silence holds again. It no longer feels heavy. It feels supportive. You realize that sleep here is not meant to isolate you from others. It keeps you aware of them. Shared breathing, shared cold, shared endurance. This awareness carries into waking life. You move with others, not separately. The community shapes rest and work equally. You think of how modern sleep often isolates. Doors closed, rooms separated, each person managing rest alone. Here, sleep binds people together. That binding does not require conversation. It exists through proximity and shared experience. As the night progresses, you feel less inclined to analyze. Thoughts quiet. Sensations soften. Cold remains. But it no longer demands commentary. It has become background. You wake again briefly, then return to rest without effort. The bed holds you as it always has. Firm. Honest. You understand now that medieval sleep was not about recovery in the modern sense. It was about continuity. Staying functional. Staying present. Staying aligned with the rhythm of the community. This perspective shifts how you feel about the coming morning. There is no dread, just acceptance. The night moves forward, measured by breath and bell, rather than clock. You move with it. By the time dawn approaches again, you will rise without surprise. Your body will know what to do. And in that knowing, you find a quiet strength. Not the strength of comfort, but the strength of adaptation. You rest within that strength now, letting sleep come and go as it will, trusting that it is enough. The memory of cold does not fade when you wake. It stays with you, woven into muscle and habit, carried quietly through the day and back into the night. Even before you lie down again, your body remembers what waits. Stone, straw, darkness, the long, with patient hours. This memory shapes how you prepare. Movements become economical. You adjust clothing with intention, knowing how each fold and layer will matter later. Nothing is rushed. Nothing is added without purpose. When you enter the dormitory again, it feels less like a place and more like a state of being. The same shapes greet you. The same faint scents. Wool, dust, human breath. These signals tell your body to slow before your mind has time to comment. You lower yourself onto the bed with practiced care. Your hands find familiar positions. Your shoulders settle where pressure will be least. You have learned this through experience rather than instruction. This learning is quiet. It does not feel like progress. Yet it is. Your breath deepens almost immediately. The room seems to receive it. Others are settling too. Each body finding its place in the shared pattern. No one needs to look. No one needs to speak. The night gathers again, not as an unknown, but as something anticipated. You notice how quickly resistance falls away now. Earlier nights demanded negotiation. This one does not. You accept the cold as a given. You accept broken sleep as part of the design. This acceptance changes the texture of the night. It does not make it easy, but it makes it lighter. You think of how memory works here, not as a story replayed, but as a set of adjustments stored in the body. Your posture shifts subtly. Your breathing adapts. You conserve heat without thinking. This embodied knowledge would have been common among monks who lived through many winters. The first cold nights taught lessons that lasted years. You feel those lessons now, even if they are not fully yours yet. Sleep arrives in familiar fragments. You drift. You wake lightly. You drift again. The bell comes and goes. Each interruption fits into the pattern without surprise. The cold feels steady rather than sharp. It presses evenly, as if respecting the boundaries you have learned to set. You notice that your dreams, when they appear, are quieter now. Less imagery, more sensation. They do not pull you far from the surface. When you wake between fragments, you do not analyze. You adjust once if needed, then rest again. This efficiency preserves energy. The memory of previous nights has taught you what matters and what does not. Small discomforts can be ignored. Larger ones require careful response. You listen to the room with familiarity. You know which sounds matter and which do not. Wind brushing stone, wood settling, breath rising and falling. These no longer trigger alertness. The silence feels less tense. It holds rather than presses. You sense the night moving forward, not through thought, but through subtle changes. The air thickens slightly. The building settles more deeply. Time passes. This is where long memory takes over. Not personal memory alone, but shared memory. The dormitory feels shaped by countless nights like this. The walls seem to remember. You imagine generations of bodies lying here, adjusting in the same ways, breathing the same cold air, waking to the same bells. Their presence feels layered into the space. This sense of continuity brings a strange comfort. Your discomfort is not unique. It is part of a long pattern. You think of how this pattern shaped identity. A monk did not define himself by single nights, but by seasons endured. Winter was not an interruption. It was a teacher. You feel that teaching now. It does not speak. It repeats. Sleep comes again. Shallow but steady. The body rests as much as it can. That is enough. When you wake briefly, you notice how quickly you settle again. The mind no longer fights the process. It trusts the rhythm. The bell will call you when it is time. Until then, rest arrives in its own measured way. You feel your breathing slow further. Muscles soften. The ache in your joints dulls to a background presence. Cold remains, but it no longer dominates attention. The night deepens, but it does not feel endless. You know it will end. Memory tells you so. This knowledge makes waiting easier. You are not trapped in the dark. You are moving through it. You wake once more, not to sound, but to a subtle shift in the air. It feels slightly less dense. Dawn approaches. Though warmth does not follow yet, you remain still, conserving energy for the coming movement. You know what morning will require. This calm readiness is the gift of familiarity. Fear fades when patterns repeat. You rest again, letting the last stretch of night pass quietly. Breath in, breath out. The room holds. By the time the final bell approaches, Your body is already preparing. Blood stirs. Muscles brace gently. Awareness rises. You do not dread the sound. You expect it. The night has done its work, not by restoring you completely, but by teaching you how to endure without tension. As sleep loosens its hold one last time, you understand that these winter nights leave a mark, not just in memory, but in posture, breath, and expectation. You carry that mark forward, into the morning, into the day, into the next night. The cold will return. The bed will remain firm. Sleep will break and return again. And each time, you will meet it with less resistance, guided by the quiet knowledge your body now holds. The final hours before dawn feel different from the rest of the night. The cold remains, but it has lost its sharpest edge. Not because the air is warmer, but because your body has settled into a deep familiarity with it. What once demanded attention now simply exists. You lie still, breathing slowly, aware that this is the last stretch. The dormitory feels suspended in a quiet pause. No one moves much. Even the building seems to wait. Your body knows what is coming. There will be a bell. There will be rising. There will be cold stone underfoot. Yet there is no tension in this knowledge. It feels inevitable. And because of that, calm, it's mitre. You notice how little you are thinking now. Thoughts drift in and out without catching. Sensation has softened. Cold presses, but gently. Fatigue rests heavily, but evenly. This is acceptance in its simplest form. Not agreement, not enjoyment, just the absence of resistance. You think briefly of the first night you arrived here. How foreign everything felt. How loud the cold seemed. How firm the bed felt like an accusation. That memory feels distant now. The night has shaped you quietly, not through instruction, but through repetition. Your breathing slows further. Each inhale feels measured. Each exhale releases a small weight. You remain close to wakefulness, but not tense. The dormitory holds its final silence of the night. Breath rises and falls around you. The shared presence of others feels steady and reassuring. Somewhere deep in the building, stone contracts softly. A barely audible sound passes and fades. No one reacts. You sense the approach of morning not through light, but through subtle change. The air feels slightly looser. Time has shifted. When the bell finally rings, it does not feel like an interruption. It feels like completion. You open your eyes and sit up without surprise. Stiffness remains, but it feels manageable. Your body moves with care, but without protest. Around you, others rise as well. Movements are slow, practiced, unified. There is no grogginess here, only readiness shaped by habit. As your feet meet the cold stone floor, you breathe through the shock. Blood begins to move again. Sensation returns. This is how the night ends, not with relief, but with transition. You stand, adjust your clothing, and prepare to move forward into the day. The bed has given what it could. The night has taught what it needed to teach. Before you step away, you pause for a brief moment of stillness. And here, the night begins to release you fully. Your breath deepens, your shoulders lower. The tension you did not realize you were holding softens. The dormitory fades behind you as you follow the others toward morning prayer, toward movement, toward the slow return of warmth through effort. The winter night is over, but its lesson remains. You carry it with you in how you move, how you rest, how you accept what cannot be changed. And now, as the day begins to open around you, it is time to let the night fade gently from your awareness. The cold does not disappear all at once. It loosens gradually, like a hand unclenching. Your thoughts slow. Your breathing becomes steady and calm. You feel grounded, present, and safe. The long winter night has passed, and you have endured it. Now, let your body relax. Let your breathing soften. Let the memory of stone walls and quiet breath drift away. You are warm enough. You are still. You are at rest. Sleep comes easily now, without effort, without resistance. The night fades completely. Sweet dreams.